Let's start stream up. All the buttons are up. Oh, I just realized I probably couldn't see it on my phone because I'm not using the right channel. I should be on, like, my actual YouTube channel if I want to try and see it. Joining the donut cult. Muting my phone. And now I can view the chat. I am so incredibly smart, you guys. No one's here. I haven't, like, sent out the thing. But, you know. Oh boy, I can actually see the delay. Wild. Alright, anyway. I'm gonna send out my link. Alright. Hey, Stream Elements bot is running. Okay. I think I've sent most of this link to most of the places it can be. Hey, Erebus. How you doing? I am simply out here. Okay. So, I am in the unenviable situation of not actually being able to use my second display for streaming crimes. So, because I'm doing a little picture-in-picture thing. Tired. That's fair. Okay. If I head over to gameplay, I can switch this to this, and booyah. Did I accidentally... Oh!
Trying to see how far you...
May have accidentally... Is there... No sensitive information there. Okay, cool. I love how I checked for sensitive information by bringing up the thing that could have had sensitive information in it. I don't know, it's like a picture-in-picture thing. Okay, anyway. So I will be following this tutorial by the Blender Guru, who is renowned for onboarding people into Blender systems. Which I think will be cool as fuck. Ooh, and YouTube's telling me I got 3 people in my chat. I actually just realized I was so busy setting this up that I didn't, like, do self-care first. Hold on. I'm gonna switch back to starting soon, and I will be a few minutes. I'm gonna pull up some chill music in the meantime, though. Alright, I've got the Chill Hop radio pulled up. Listen to that, I will be in a minute. This chair squeakies will help. Gotta reorganize my dishes. Ending up. Okay. I am back. I don't expect this one to get much in the way of viewers. So, we can probably just hop right in. Apologies for taking a decent amount of time right up front. Switch over to my... Oh! Okay. Forgot that it was just like the actual... Alright, hold on. Let me switch back to OBS real quick. Then take down the music and switch to Blender without accidentally showing off my stream key. That's the ideal situation. Not showing off your stream key. Gods, I can change it, but you know, be a bit of a pain for resetting up my OBS. Okay. So let's switch back over the tutorial and get started.
You can go without getting help. If you've just opened Blender for the first time and then you've tried to do things, maybe trying to see how far you can go without getting help, you might have discovered you need help immediately. You can't even move things without a tutorial. But the good news is you don't need to learn everything that you can see, right? I, for example, have been using Blender for 18 years, and I still have not touched some parts of Blender, like scripting. Never touched it. Because I don't need to for what it is that I'm trying to do. This fly is going to kill me.
Scripting.
It's, if you're familiar with the 80-20 rule, I think there's really about 20% of Blender's features that you'll use in 80 or 90% of projects. And that's what I want to teach you in this tutorial series. And then since I think doing is the best way to learn, along the way we'll also be building our very own donut, of course. The donut, what I'm known for. This is the third time I'm making a donut tutorial series. Every time Blender releases a new version, I make this series. So if you finish this full series, you will end up with a donut that looks very similar to this. So let's get started. This big window that you can see right here opened up, this is called the 3D Viewport, and it's where you'll spend probably 90% of your time. Because everything you need to visualize, whether it's an animation or an archviz or anything like that, it all happens right here. So by default, you can see you get 3 objects. You've got a cube, you've got what looks like a ball on a piece of string, that's a lamp, and then you've got a camera, this little, what would you call that? Like a triangle arrow looking thing. That's a camera, okay? And then if you were to render this by going to render image, or hitting the hotkey F12, it would take a snapshot from that camera view, okay? And although this looks very similar to what you were just looking at, this one actually has lighting information, okay? You got shadow, you got some light coming off the top here. And if you had textures or materials and everything else, it would all be calculated, okay? So if you've already used other 3D software, you're already familiar with the concept, but this is one of the basic principles of 3D rendering. What you build in the 3D
I understand a little about 3D, like so I have some of this in my head.
Version of what it is you're trying to create. And then when you're ready for that final image, you hit render, and then it uses your CPU or your GPU to crunch all the numbers and calculate the light and the bounces and everything like that to create that final beautiful image. So that's the basics. All right, but you might notice, like, okay, well, all right, can we move this thing? How do we even do something basic like move it? There's 2 ways you could do it. One would be to use the Move tool in your toolbar. If you activate that, you can see that over the cube now you get these arrows. And if you were to click and drag on any of those arrows, you would move it along that axis. If you clicked on the white circle in the middle, then that would just be sort of like free dragging it, okay? Now, you could do it that way, but actually, I never do it that way because it is far easier to just learn the hotkey, which in this case is G. G for grab. Okay, so if you just hit G, your cursor doesn't have to be anywhere near it, and I'm not clicking. My hands are off the clicker. It's just attached to your cursor basically the moment you hit G. And then if you just do a single left click, it will confirm its movement. So G, click. And my cursor could be anywhere, right?
And
I can
Control Z
is
is
actually good because you don't have to like think about where is my cursor. Do I have to like get it on here and then hit it? No, it's really, it just allows you to work really fast. Excuse me while I get a drink of water.
I did a little bit of editing of like things, so I also have access to the tools he's about to talk about on a spacebar hit. So I can hit spacebar and select it with my mouse, and also do. It has like all of, and I click on it, and it's got like all the proper. So yeah, I can also do that.
I know I'm only 2 minutes into the video. 4 minutes. All right. Anyways. Now, one thing you're missing with this is those axes lines, like being able to move it along a specific axis is actually a really common action. You want to use it all the time. And you can do that after you have hit G by typing the letter of the axes. So there are 3 axes, and the axes letters are X, okay, which is the left and right, Y, which is back and forwards, and then Z, which is up and down. Some 3D softwares call the Y-axis the up and down, but Blender's it's the Z, the blue one. Alternatively, you can also, as you're moving it,
in fact, Minecraft uses Y is up and down and Z is side to side. It confuses me a lot, or at least it's definitely going to confuse me while I'm doing this. But it has confused me in the past because I've taken like a 3D class in the past, so I have had to deal with both coordinate systems, and it's a nightmare.
If you hold down on your mouse, on your scroll wheel, if you push in, that's called the middle mouse button, push in until it clicks, and just hold that, and you can see you get this little line that draws out, and then you can just drag it to the nearest line, nearest axis, and it will automatically snap to that, which is really handy. Pretty cool. Not too bad. Okay, so that's moving things. Now, the other 2 actions that are really common is rotate and scale. And you can,
and it works you can
use the tool just
too.
by clicking here, and then you can, you know, rotate it on a specific axis. You could click in the middle and like do a trackball thing. Scale, exact same thing. Scale it like that. But again, I recommend learning the hotkeys, which you can learn just by hovering over it. Yeah, the hotkey for this one. So where it says shortcut, shift, spacebar, it's technically true. You could activate it from this little menu here if you hit shift spacebar, but it's the one after that, R. Really easy to remember, R for rotate. Okay, so rotate, and then you can hit the letter of the axes as well, or do that same holding the middle mouse button. Oh, that's weird. Maybe because I did it after tapping it. Anyways, and then you've got scale, which is hovering over it, S for scale. Okay, S, X, Y, and Z, like that. And if you want to cancel a movement, you can hit escape, or you can just right-click as well, and that'll also cancel the movement.
Y.
But yeah, so you can see you could do quite a lot just with those few little movements there. Okay, so that's how you move stuff about. Now, let's talk about the next thing you probably want to learn is like, how do I actually move my view? Like, how could I look and explore the rest of the scene? And that is also done with your middle mouse button. Okay, so if you click in on your scroll wheel until it clicks, you are orbiting. That is how you orbit. And my laptop people with trackpads, you are panicking right now because you've just realized you don't have a middle mouse button. You can do it in a pinch by going to the top right-hand corner. There's a little gizmo. And if you just click and drag on that, you can see that you are able to
for anyone out there who wants to Blender on a laptop and also have
alternatively, you can also go edit preferences, and then underneath input, if you click emulate 3-button mouse, this will enable you to holding down Alt.
The original tutorial is linked in the pinned message as well as the description of the stream if you want to look at the original.
Which is pretty cool. It's not bad. Whilst you're here, by the way, you might also, depending on the size of your screen, you might want to change the resolution, because by default it's 1, which on my 4K monitor you can see that my buttons and the text is really small. And if you crank it all the way up, you can get it to something comfortable. 0.4 or 5 is what I would normally go for. And by the way, I'm snapping it like as you're dragging something. If you hold down Control, it's using incremental
I'm used to things
numbers,
being
so it keeps it to like a whole number. I'd normally go like 1.4 if I was using it myself, but it's a tutorial, so I'll keep it big so you guys can see what I'm getting at.
Do 1.2.
Cool. And another thing, just while I'm here, just mentioning, some of you are from other 3D software, 3ds Max, Maya, that kind of thing. You might find it helpful to know there's an industry compatible key map that you could enable, which I'll put them up on the screen here, but it's more common keyboard shortcuts if you're used to other software. But for this tutorial series and everyone else, I recommend sticking to the Blender one because, of course, all the hotkeys and everything you'll learn whilst learning Blender will be for this hotkey thing. Anyways, all right, okay, so that's orbiting. Okay, now you can see as I orbit around, it's like locked on to my middle of my screen here. Okay, if I want to move somewhere else, that is pan, which is Shift middle mouse button.
A friend of mine's playing.
Okay, now I'm shifting my view to somewhere else where I could pan around that place and shift again. And if you're on a trackpad, you could also use this, move the view, this little hand icon thing at the top there. Do invest in a mouse, please. You will need it for
invest
3D.
In a mouse.
You really should get a mouse. It's going to be tough. The other thing that I'm doing right now is I'm using the scroller to zoom in and out. You could also use this little magnifying glass up there,
tutorial.
or hold down Control, and then again click in on the middle mouse, and that will use a smooth movement rather than the scroll wheel, which is quite jagged.
Hey, Control middle click. Cool.
Okay, cool. So let's say you've moved the cube all the way over there.
We are just following a tutorial by Blender Guru. It's linked in the pinned message and the description, just in case anyone hasn't heard that already.
There, like, okay, so you could, if you wanted to go and inspect
work on making a donut, but for the first little bit, we're
work
going
your
to
way over there by using
basic
Shift middle mouse button to pan over there.
Things.
But it is far easier to just learn the hotkey number pad period, which will focus on any selected object. So if I want to go to my camera over there, I can select my camera.
Oh, geez, that's entirely too close.
Will take me over to there. Again, my laptop users are going, oh no, I don't
numpad
have a
0 is just shows you the perspective.
The alternative way to do it is hold down the tilde key, which is that weird key underneath your escape key you've probably never used before. That brings up a pie menu with a bunch of view options.
Blender is a 3D modeling software, yes.
Is focus. View selected will take you there. Okay, cool. So we've learned orbiting with middle mouse, Shift middle mouse to pan, and then Control middle mouse to zoom in and out or scroll.
In the future, if I stick with Blender, I'll have more...
The other one you probably want to learn is...
modeling streams with more commentary from me.
Because it's something that new beginners often end up like upside down, and they're like, how did this happen? So you can go to bring yourself the right way up just by clicking one of these letters on your axes up here. Okay, so if you clicked that, I'm now the right way. Well, am I the right way up? Yes, I'm the right way up. I'm just focused on a weird part of the scene. That's why it's very weird. Alternatively,
I'll say I took a 3D class in college. I have definitely ended up with the entire thing being upside down and not knowing how to fix that. Hey, Liminal, how you doing?
Instead of these, so there's the 3 axes that you could snap yourself to. You could also learn the hotkeys, which is number pad 1 for front view, 1 for front view, 3 for side view, and 7 for top view. That's only number pad. It doesn't work for your keys along the top unless you wanted to enable that over here, emulate number pad, and then it would do that. But yeah, so that's handy as well. You might also find, you'll notice, that in this view, this is orthographic mode. Okay, so we can't see the other sides of our cube right now. It's a weird looking cube, but we can't see the other sides because this is orthographic mode. It's like looking at it with like a focal length of like infinity, right? So there's no depth in our scene right now, which is actually really handy, and it defaults to it for this align to view thing.
Oh, yeah.
Immediately, because you usually want that, but the hotkey for that is number pad 5,
to like a reference image,
and that will take you in and out of perspective mode. You can also do it up there, like that. You can see the difference. Oh, and another way that you could see align to view, because there's a couple of ways. You could also use that tilde key. That'll take you to the top, the right, the side, etc. You could also use in the viewport.
Oh, you can change perspective in orthographic.
It's also got the hotkeys there if you happen to forget them. And the other way is the same as ZBrush, if you're familiar with ZBrush. I just cleared the location of that with Alt-G. You don't need to remember that one. That's a weird one. Similar to ZBrush, holding down Alt whilst middle mouse button orbiting will also snap it to the nearest axes, which is also really handy as well. So if I'm like moving around and I'm like, I want to look up, just hold down Alt and it'll just snap it there, which is really handy. So that's kind of the 3D viewport. We'll obviously get way more into this as we delve into the other lessons. But whilst we're here, these other sections over here. So on the right-hand side, this is your properties. And as you can imagine, it's the properties of
properties over here. I think it's blocked by the picture in picture.
You can change render settings or things here. And look, there's a lot here.
But y'all can see
I would strongly recommend not
tutorial.
trying to learn all the values because you're not going to remember them anyway.
You're probably
we'll go through them as
looking
they're
at this to learn along with me. But
I think the best way to learn is to just do for something that you need to do. So that's what I try to teach. These options, some of these options will change depending on what is selected. So like if my camera is selected, you can see I get a camera icon, and then I could change some camera settings. If my cube is selected, I get some material settings.
You can change lens type and shit. Add depth of field
to red, and I could see a.
Oh, hold on, real quick. Pull this up. Flip it in the other corner. There's not as much there. That feels appropriate. A little weird to look at, but it works a little better for what we're doing. Okay, cool.
Beautiful gray-red color. It's a weird-looking red. The reason it's not changing over here in the 3D viewport is because, again, this is a simplified view of the final render. So there's no material properties in this view. We'll get to viewport rendering later on, but for now, you would see it, though, if you were in rendered, again, F12, to do an actual render. Now, at the top here, we have got a outliner.
Yeah,
so this is keeping a running inventory of everything that you've got in your 3D
changes, you just can't see it.
So we've got 3 objects and we've got 1 collection. So a collection is just, it's like a folder, basically. Simple way to think of it. So you can like organize things. You can rename things just by double clicking on it. Yeah, whatever, right? And so that'll automatically update as you add things to the scene. Like if I was to duplicate my object, which I could do by hitting Shift D to duplicate, you can see there's created another object right up there in the outliner. So if I ever like lose something and I'm like, oh, where's that thing? I can just find it on here and then just, bam, whoops, bam. Oh, by the way, I just accidentally tapped number pad 0, which is how you can look through the camera view. You could also do it by hitting the little camera icon on the right there.
Numpad 0 does it like at all times.
Camera, or by hitting the tilde key. So there are 4 places to get viewport options depending on what device or whatever it is that you're looking at. I deleted something by hitting X. You could also do it by hitting delete. By the way, I'm throwing a lot of keys at you, keyboard shortcuts. It's a lot to take in, especially when you're starting. So I created a keyboard shortcut PDF, and the link for that is in the description. It's just a list. It's like 3 or 4 pages of the most common hotkeys that you'll need to learn, or you might need to reference as you're using Blender. So you can basically load it up on another monitor whilst you're working, and you've got it there as reference if you need it. I used to make it like a bonus for signing up for my newsletter, but now I'll just make it free. So you don't have to subscribe. You can just click that link, view it, and hopefully that'll make it easier to use Blender. You can still subscribe to my newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter on tutorials, artworks, and things that I find in the 3D industry. So if you want to keep up to date and learn new things, you can subscribe to that,
part of that newsletter
in the description as well. But that's it for this one.
But it is handy to see that the keybinds are actually easier to access now. Hold on, I might download that real quick. There we go. It's in Dropbox. Oh. Download the thing. I got it. I'm pulling it up. There we go. Hotkeys. Oh, Jesus Christ, there's a lot here. I'm going to keep that in the back burner.
Quite a lot of ground, so we'll keep it simple. And yeah, open up a brand new scene in Blender, and then join me in part 2, which is where we'll actually start making that donut now that you've got the basics. So we'll be learning about adding objects. And
in the last version of this tutorial I watched, he tells you how to set a monkey head on fire. And I actually want to do that real quick, because I think I remember how to do it. I just need to remember how to get the monkey head. I think I remember how to do it. I just need to figure out how to do the most important bit. What does shift space do? Right. Almost forgot. Most 3D programs have like some basic things. Oh, add. There we go. Mesh. Monkey. Monkey? Oh, that's Suzanne. I love Suzanne. Let's set her on fire. It's not in here. I don't think. Let's see. Suzanne, can I set you on fire? I don't think it'd be in here. Wait, there is some physics bits in here. Explode? Huh? Oh, there's so many bits in here. So many things. How do I set Suzanne on fire? Can I set you on fire? No? Alright. I have a new side goal for this tutorial, and it is to set Suzanne on fire. Because I want to. I want to so bad. Sandwich. Absolutely valid, Erebus. Alright. So the next episode of the tutorial is called Beginner Object Editing.
This tutorial series was brought to you by my company, Polygon. High-quality models and textures for better renders.
Got a company, it's called Polygon.
All right, enough faffing around, as my late grandfather would say. We have learned the basics of the interface, all the hotkeys. We've fooled around. Now we're going to start building
Don't save changes to this
donut.
one.
Okay, so we are going to delete our default cube, which is just the delete key, or X, which is the older shortcut, and we're going to replace it with something new. So to add a new object in Blender, you need to go up to Add, up here, and you get this long list, or you can hit the hotkey, which is what I'm going to be using for the tutorial, Shift A. And
Shift A
truthfully, most of these options, wow, a lot of the options you rarely use. Like speaker, I don't think I've ever used. Most of the time what you're looking for is mesh, because to render...
Ooh, real quick, I'm pretty sure speaker is for locational audio, which would be helpful for games, but this guy's a 3D modeler, so it makes sense that he wouldn't, is my thing. Then I've also... the grease pencil here, I don't know if he's used it in the past. He might have. But it is used for doing 2D/2.5D animation in Blender. I've seen some cool grease pencil like animations done, which I've really liked. He's about to tell us to make a torus. Then we're gonna edit some of those settings.
You really need to start with a mesh. Like if you followed like a character tutorial, you might be surprised when they're like, all right, start with a cube, and then, you know, we'll beep and we'll form the character eventually from that, right? But you have to start with something. So usually you pick the object which most resembles what it is you're trying to create. And in this case, there's a really easy one. It's the donut-shaped one, the torus. torus. That is a word I never would have learned, except for Blender. I would have called that a donut, but evidently the mathematicians decided they need a special word for it. Okay, when you add an object and do certain actions actually in Blender, you get options straight after adding it, okay? But they're kind of hidden because they're trying to stay out of the way unless you need them. And it's down there in the bottom left-hand corner. There's a little
bottom
box.
left-hand corner.
Which
Already
if you click
clicked it.
it
It's
expands.
this stuff.
And then you get options like
when you click off of it, you don't get access to them.
The size of it and everything. Now, if you don't see that box, it's probably because you accidentally clicked off it, okay? It'll only show it after you've just added it. If you click off it, it assumes you're fine with it. You're good, okay? Now, if you haven't done another action since then, if you haven't edited it and clicked on something else or whatever, you can temporarily bring it back for one last time, really, until you do something else with F9. Okay, so F9 will bring those same options back just at your cursor, basically. But if you don't see it, then just re-add it, delete it, and re-add it, and you'll get those options back again. Okay, so with this, let's make some changes to it. Okay, so for starters, this is a very thin donut.
Made it very small.
And you want to know this maybe, but this is the third time I've made this donut beginner series. Every time there's a new version of Blender, I make this series again. This is number 3. And basically, for the last 5 years of my life, I have been seeing
this
every
channel
day
icon
on
is currently a Blender,
tags
by the
me
way.
in their donut render. And I've become very good at realizing the attributes that make donuts look good. And I think the best donuts are the ones that look thick. The ones that look like, oh yeah, I want to sink my teeth into that because it's got a lot of icing, it's got a lot of dough. I don't know, just something about a fat donut, just like, yeah, that looks delicious. So I'm going thick this time, okay? And then the major segments and the minor segments, these are, as you can probably see, we'll call it the resolution of our donut, but it is it's the amount of geometry. Okay, so this, you are probably tempted to go like really high because this is what I did when I first started using Blender.
This is what they call that shape in the dark ages before the invention of the donut. I'm trying to make something high quality and realistic, so it's got to be smooth. Okay, so I'm going to go really high res. It's actually the opposite. You do not want that. I immediately realized when I started using this is a terrible idea. For one, you can't go back. Okay. When you go high, you can. If you go low, you can add other things, which is what we're going to do to make also
it
for
smoother.
making it look smooth. There is just like a button you can hit that makes it shade smooth. That looks a lot better.
It's a bigger file. Your viewport slows down. Your computer's whirring away harder. And all that. And also, it is harder to work with. Okay, when we enter edit mode, and we're going to do this later, and like do some edits and stuff here, I have to work with this many vertices, these little points, and that is just too much. So you actually want the exact opposite. So we want to keep it as minimum. Okay, so the minimum amount of detail depends on what it is you're trying to create. We could go like really low, but we're actually going to use part of this donut for the icing. So I'm trying to think, okay, what am I going to do with the icing? Am I going to make some like dribbly bits going down it? I don't know. Having done this a few times, I think I'm going to go with around like somewhere around 40 to 20.
40, 20? I did 24, 12.
Something like that. Let's go 16. 16 looks good. Okay. By the way, and you would never know this because how could you if you're a beginner? But like it's also a good idea to try to keep square faces because as a general, if you're making something organic and it's going to be smooth, if it's got rectangular faces, it can like stretch the shading and things just start to look weird. So I'm trying to keep it generally to a square face. Doesn't have to be a hard rule, but something like that. All right, then I'm going to click off it and I'm done. And I can't get those options back temporarily with F9, but you get the idea. Okay, cool. So, great. Let's talk about, first of all, the size of this donut, okay? Because although it looks like, what is the scale of our scene here, right? We're like looking into the distance there, like how big is this grid floor? Small. We don't know. It could be microscopic. It could be, 500 meters. It could be landscape size. We don't know. We actually do. Okay, so each one of these grid squares here, is it 1 meter or 2? I think it's 1 meter. Hang on. Yes, it is 1 meter. Okay, so this, actually, the size of our donut is humongous. It is 3 meters by 3 meters. Okay, so if you, sorry, I didn't tell you the hotkey. N will bring up your properties. Very handy, convenient shortcut. You just bring it up when you want to learn click on your object and then go to item, and then you can see, you know, details around your object. Okay, so it's 3 meters by 3 meters, which is like roughly like 2 people laying down lengthways.
Jesus Christ.
By the way, speaking of that, if you are American, for my American audience, you can change your units to be Wacky Imperial, and you can get 9.9 periwinkles or whatever it is. I don't know. You can do that. I'm going to use 3 meters because the rest of the world is also watching. All right. So this obviously needs to be much smaller. So we're going to scale it. Scaling, the hotkey S. Scale it right down to the size of a donut, which I've learned is around about, like, the biggest size would be around about like 10 centimeters, right? Yeah, roughly. So yeah, 10 centimeters is what we're looking for. Something like that. We could have done it when we added the torus, but that was radius, and radius is like, you got to double it to make it. And I'm like, just scale it down after we make it, and it'd be much easier to figure out. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to do is apply the scale, because, and this is another thing you would never know if you're a beginner, but it's sort of a running joke in the 3D world. But like, anytime you run into a problem with your mesh, something's not working, apply the scale, because if your scale is wrong, other things tend to perform wrong, like modifiers and other things like that. So this scale here should pretty much always be 1 if you can, try and make it always 1, roughly speaking. So to apply your scale, you go Control A and then hit scale. Okay, so Control A for apply and then scale. And now it is 1. Nothing has changed, but it just means things will work better in the future. And I'm just doing it because I know I'll forget it, and then they'll be like in the comments, and people go, "Why is mine messed up?" And it was because of this part I didn't say hit.
Anyway, I didn't learn that in the last tutorial.
Okay, so how do we get rid of these jagged lines? Because that's probably your next question. How do we get rid of those jagged lines? There are two types of shading in Blender or in 3D: flat and smooth. So by default, it is flat. To change it to smooth, we just right-click and then hit Shade Smooth. Okay. And when we do that, it is basically like for these faces here, it has taken, instead of treating each face separately, if they're an adjacent face, it's going to like stretch the light across. It's going to treat it as if it is one continuous face rather than 2 faces. So
also, for all my Minecraft friends, smooth shading is a thing that also happens over there.
You generally want smooth things, and then for like architecture or hard surface things, you want flat things. So shade smooth. So we've got rid of that. That's good. Now you'll notice that it has not fixed the silhouette of our object. Okay, so shade smooth is a illusion. Okay, it's not actually adding any geometry, which is great because it's lightweight, it's easy to work with. It's not adding geometry, but your silhouette will still be broken or still look jagged. The only way to fix that is to add more detail. It's something that games. That's kind of the thing. If you want to look at a game and go like, I wonder how poly this thing is. Like, look at the silhouette of a character or the shape of a building or something like that. And if you see jagged lines, you can basically see the mesh, like how high poly something is by the silhouette. So we can fix that with something called a subsurf operation, okay, or subdivision. And there are a few ways to do it. But the way we do it in Blender is with adding a modifier. Okay, so we click this little wrench. Or is it a spanner? Is that a spanner? It's been a while since I got my hands dirty. Anyways, it's the modifier panel over here. And then go up and underneath add modifier. If you click it, you get a whole bunch of different options here. And the one that we're looking for is, I mean, you use it so often. I wish it was at the top, but it's not. It's down here, Subdivision Surface. So you click that, and you might see that it has now smoothed out ever so slightly. You can see that edge there, the jagged edge is no longer there. Or it is there, but it is less. So what is subsurf, it's called a subsurf, even though it's called subdivision. Subsurf modifier, what it is doing is and I'm going to temporarily turn this off by that little icon there, that's viewport. So if you uncheck that, it's disabling it for your viewport. And that one is for render, if you want to disable it for your render. Okay, so what it is doing is, you can see the edge there, right? If there are 3 points that make up that edge there, Subsurf is now adding in, it's doubling the amount of detail across the entire mesh, not just the silhouette, the entire mesh. Every single point, it is now adding another one. Now, if you do 2 levels, so levels viewport and render, you could probably guess, that's just one operation. Okay, if I set this to 2, which is what you would see, set it to 2, which is what you see when you would render it, it's doing it again. Okay, so I guess the word's exponentially. It's exponentially adding detail every time you add this. So it's going to do it again and again and again. So obviously you don't want to go too high because otherwise your render times would be crazy. And yeah, you just want to keep it as low as possible. So often I keep it 1 or 0 whilst I'm working in the viewport. And then for the render, I keep it at like 1 or 2 or something. Anyways, all right. Okay, so we're spending a little long on this, but I need to just give you some background on how to make things look smooth without really going high res. Okay.
I appreciate the background.
So as I teased before, this mesh is made up of little points, and we can edit those points and adjust things and whatnot by going into edit mode, which you can do by hitting tab on your keyboard. Okay. Another way is to go up to the top left-hand corner, change from object mode to edit mode. Okay. So tab is just a fast way to switch between those two modes.
Control tab, and you can see a lot more modes.
Another way, third way, because why not? Control tab will bring up the pie menu, and then you can enter into
so fucking smart
along with just object and edit mode, but like texture paint and sculpt mode, and we'll do a bunch of stuff later on. But edit mode, okay. So in edit mode, we can see that we're now able to see the skeleton roughly that makes up our mesh. Okay, each of these little points here is what makes up our mesh. So these points are called vertices. Sorry, a single one is called a vertex. Multiples are called vertices. Always get them confused because it's got an S on it as well. It's like vertices, vertexes. It's not vertexes, it's vertices. Anyways,
vertices.
These little points.
There's a shit ton more tools over here.
On each of these points, if you've got 3 or more, usually 4. 4 is the ideal one. You usually
I recognize some of them though.
Meshes. You can make a face.
From my,
okay, so if I just delete, I'll just hit X and I'll show you what it looks like without
in fact,
a face.
I have some light.
So between each of these points there, I'll add.
I have some light 3D experience using the program Maya, which is why I'm doing a Blender tutorial, because even though I know a decent number of basic principles of 3D and how to make things, it's still good to get a tutorial when you're moving to a new program. So that's why I know a little bit more than a beginner, but not so much.
Another one with F.
That's been a while.
There is a face. Okay, so all the points together make up a face, and then that makes up your mesh. So what this means is that with these points, if I want to change the look of my mesh, I can take some of these points and I can move them, okay? And you use the exact same hotkeys as you did before. So to move something, it is G for grab. Okay, so if I move this up and then go back out of object
Yes, of course, I'm going to post the final donut in Discord.
Mode, you can see as I move around, it's now got a little lump.
Although I think I'm only going to get like a halfway through the tutorials because it's like several hours.
So
unless I really get focused on this.
Right? I could tweak the shape of my mesh. Okay, so let's say like I wanted to, you know, like
there's a chance that by the time you're done with your nature documentary, I will still be doing this.
Because this is necessary, by the way. Your brain, when it thinks about objects, because you've seen them so many times, it simplifies it in your head. You think of a donut as being round, but it's bumpy, it's lumpy. It was thrown in the fire. The guy who like made the dough, it was all lopsided. But in your head, you just think of it as a round circle. The digital world will always give you the perfect thing. So you need to go in and add those imperfections. There's an old quote, don't know who said it. Imperfection is the digital perfection. Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very true. So think of that. So anyways, we need to add some lumps to it and make our donut lopsided. So if we held down Shift, we could select multiple points, and then we could drag these out. I could do this. I could, you know, slowly go through it. Now this is tedious, as I'm sure you can see. Clicking, lots and lots of clicking, little points, and that's really because that's not the way I would do this. What I would do is use a feature that you use all the time, and that is proportional editing. So if you click this little button at the top here, or the hotkey for that is O, turn that on and off. What this will do is that now when I rotate scale or hit G to grab and move it, now it's actually grabbing vertices around it and it is moving it together as a whole. Now by default, your proportional size is really high, okay? So if I scroll up, I can gradually bring the fall off down to what actually makes sense for my donut, okay? Now, this was actually a point, I was reading the comments on the last video, the last version of this I made, and this was a point that a lot of people got stuck on. If you can't see this ring here, just keep scrolling up. because it is there. If you see top left-hand corner, actually, it gives you the measurement.
Did I move
as I scroll, you can see the measurement of my fall off. What you're looking for is something like a 0.04. If you can't see 0.04 meters, just keep scrolling up until you see it. And if you're on trackpad, because those people also got stuck because they're like, how do I scroll while I'm doing it? All you do is on trackpad, you tap G, then do a single click, and then down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got those options again. And then you could adjust your proportional size to like a 0.04. And then if you move, you should see the correct proportional fall off. Okay. Really, guys, invest in a mouse, please. Going trackpad, look, it's fine for Facebook, but like you're doing stuff in 3D, you got to have a mouse. Come on. All right. Okay, so now that I do this with my fall off radius, and if I just scroll up and down, I can adjust and I can make my donut look however I want. Much.
Wait, hold on. It's really not letting me edit points. What? I'm trying to hit buttons about it, but like the stuff up there is just kind of saying moving from 0 to 0.
Single click, and then down here.
Did I miss something? I'm gonna go back to the edit mode
and adjust things and whatnot on your edit mode. Okay, so tab is just a fast way to switch between those two modes. Another way, third way, because why not? Control tab will bring up the pie menu, and then you can enter into
not doing anything
along with just object and edit mode, but like texture paint and sculpt mode, and we'll do a bunch of stuff later on. But edit mode, okay. So in edit mode, we can see that we're now able to see the skeleton roughly that makes up our mesh. Okay, each of these little points here is what makes up our mesh. So these points are called vertices. Sorry, a single one is called a vertex. Multiples are called vertices. Always get them confused because it's got an S on it as well. It's like vertices, vertexes. It's not vertexes, it's vertices. Anyways, these little points make up our mesh. And on each of these points, if you've got 3 or more, usually 4, 4 is the ideal one you're usually aiming for when you're making meshes, you can make a face. Okay, so if I just delete, I'll just hit X and I'll show you what it looks like without a face. Okay, so between each of these points there, I'll add another one with F, there is a face. Okay, so all the points together make up a face, and then that makes up your mesh. So what this means is that with these points, if I want to change the look of my mesh, I can take some of these points and I can move them. Okay, and you use the exact same hotkeys as you did before. So to move something, it is G for grab. Okay, so if I move this up and then go back out of edit mode to object mode, you can see as I move around, it's now got a lump on it. Okay, pretty handy.
Why do I have to drag it that much?
I could do that, right? I could tweak the shape of my mesh. Okay, so let's say like I wanted to, you know, like make my donut look kind of like lopsided, or like add some detail, because this is necessary, by the way.
They're like snapping or something on that shouldn't be? I'm seeing the documentary is 55 minutes long and raising you, this playlist is 3 hours long. Oh. Hold on, let me make a new thing. Shift A, add mesh, torus. Woo, what the fuck? Why is it like that? Huh? Oh, okay. Major segments, minor segments. Major radius. Take that down to about 40, take that up to about 16. That's how he did it. Totally platonic. Okay. Size that. And that looks kind of donutty. Walnut. That's the worst. Okay. There we go. Okay, that's mostly proportional. Cool. Now I head into object mode, yeah? I hit G. Okay, it's working now. What the fuck did I do? Hey, Arison, love you. You are just out here with your full name on your YouTube, I am realizing, but... Okay, well, go through here at a subdivision surface. Shade that smooth. And is that gonna fuck it up? No, it's not. Okay, what about turning on proportional? Okay. I'm gonna keep... Yeah, there we go. Okay, I don't know what fucked up earlier to make it so it was like... I mean, that's fair, but also this is the bit where I upload Twitch VODs.
Your brain, when it thinks about objects, because you've seen them so many times...
I'm going to keep going with the tutorial.
It simplifies it in your head. You think of a donut as being round, but it's bumpy, it's lumpy. It was thrown in the fire. The guy who made the dough, it was all lopsided. But in your head, you just think of it as a round circle. The digital world will always give you the perfect thing. So you need to go in and add those imperfections. There's an old quote, don't know who said it. Imperfection is the digital perfection. Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very true. So think of that. So anyways, we need to add some lumps to it and make our donut lopsided. So if we held down Shift, we could select multiple points and then we could drag these out. I could do this. I could, slowly go through it. Now this is tedious, as I'm sure you can see. Clicking, lots and lots of clicking,
right.
Little points.
They haven't applied proportional editing, but we have.
Really, because that's not the way I would do this. What I would do is use a feature that you use all the time, and that is proportional editing. So if you click this little button at the top here, or the hotkey for that is O, turn that on and off. What this will do is that now when I rotate scale or hit G to grab and move it, now
I kind of want this to be like the corner donut.
Vertices around it, and it is moving.
Like when you get a big box and they've all been like crammed
by default,
in.
Your proportional size is really high, okay?
A little more
so
square.
If I scroll up,
these two sides specifically have been crammed more.
I can gradually bring the fall off down to what actually makes sense for my donut, okay? Now, this was actually a point, I was reading the comments on the last video, the last version of this I made, and this was a point that a lot of people got stuck on. If you can't see this ring here, just keep scrolling up because it is there. If you see top left-hand corner, actually, it gives you the measurement. As I scroll, you can see the measurement of my fall-off. What you're looking for is something like a 0.04.
Yeah, that's kind of like a weird squarish shape.
Just keep scrolling up until you see it. And if you're on trackpad, because those people also got stuck, because they're like, how do I scroll while I'm doing it? All you do is, on trackpad, you tap G, then do a single click, and then down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got those options again. And then you could adjust your proportional size to like a 0.04. And then if you move, you should see the correct proportional fall-off, okay? Really, guys, invest in a mouse, please. Going trackpad, look, it's fine for Facebook, but like you're doing stuff in 3D, you got to have a mouse. Come on. All right. Okay, so now that I do this with my fall-off radius, and if I just scroll up and down, I can adjust, and I can make my donut look however I want, much more easily, okay? Make this part go out, maybe make this part have like a little lump that's sort of skew if like that. Maybe this middle part, sort of like this.
I like the idea of making a lump. I can make a bit of a lump back here.
And I'll do another one here, something like that. Okay. Oh, that's a little lopsided. It's a little bit repetitive of what's on that side. And this is maybe a little bit too far. Just sort of playing it by eye. But I have to keep this for the rest of the donut, for the rest of the tutorial. So I'm trying to do it well. Okay, it's something else, by the way, another hotkey. You can see that if I want to move this up, if I was to move it like this, right, it's moved everything also left to right as well, okay, because of my camera angle, okay? If I'm looking at something like this and I'm moving it, it is moving it across the donut. So it's scrunching everything going this way. That's not what I want. I want it to go directly up. So it means I have to get my camera angle like right down here to do that up. Alternatively, better
you can
way,
see the flavors of ways
too
that
many
I've fucked
hotkeys
it
at
up.
you. Get my keyboard shortcuts if you haven't already. Link in the description. But another hotkey is Alt-S, which instead of moving it just arbitrarily, this will now move it according to which direction those faces are pointing. And this is actually perfect for this exact case because we've got, points, rounded around it. And it's just, it's tedious to have to get my camera angle exactly right when really I just want to be able to select certain parts and then pull them in and out. So Alt-S allows me to do that. The shrink and fatten tool is what it is called. But other softwares, I think they call it move along normals or something like that. Something like that. All right. And then maybe the base as well. I think we should make it a little bit lopsided on the base. Move that down. Something like that. Now there is a sculpt tool, which we'll talk about when we get to the icing, that could also do this, but that is not the point of this tutorial. So I'm just doing proportional editing because, to be honest, like this proportional editing is perfect for this kind of thing. Yeah.
One
cool.
weird
So it's just entering into edit mode to do your changes, going into object mode to see how it looks, and then swapping back out.
Totally tubular.
And that's really all it is.
I think
did
the thing that you just said.
Too lopsided. I went too far with the imperfections. But that also comes into like the style.
I'm not a coward, so I'm keeping mine.
Of what you're doing. Yeah. Something like that. Oh, by the way, another side point I just mentioned. When we're talking about object and edit mode.
I'm keeping my ugly ass donut.
A big problem a lot of beginners have that I find is that later on you'll be like,
I'll donut.
Say, all right, so select your lamp and your camera or something like that. And they'll be like,
all right, see you now.
I can't click on it. What's happened? It's because you are still in edit mode, okay? Edit mode means you cannot click on anything else other than the object that you are editing. You're still in this. When you switch back to object mode, you're now able to click on any object in your scene, but in edit mode, it is locked to that view. So if you can't click on things, just remember, check what mode you're in.
The current render is
switch to object mode and
aiming really far away.
Okay.
So it's just
to finish on something completely random, because why not? Just throw it in there just as a little Easter egg for those of you that made it to the end of the video. Is something cool. If you go to select, there's an option there for select random, and this will just select at random vertices on your mesh, and then you've got a little ratio thing you could change down the bottom there. Then if you used Alt-S, you would basically make a lumpy looking donut. So it's kind of like a quick way if you wanted to make a lumpy looking donut, you could do it that way.
Yeah.
Also, if you change the fall off type, okay, so this is that ring, that little circle that goes around, right? If you changed it from the smooth one to sharp, then you would make it something else, like a spiky warped donut. I don't know. It actually looks better without the subsurf. No, it does not. Okay, I don't know what I was thinking with that.
Oh no.
Anyways, all right, just something random to finish on. Okay, so play with your donut, get something that you like, and then join me in the next part as we do the icing. So click here, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. To make renders like these, you need...
All right, hold on. Self-promoting over there. Oh my god. This is the worst thing I have ever created, I think. Look at this. Look at this little baby. Look at my little baby boy. Oh. Can I bring the camera down here so I can get a render of this before I correct it? Like gods. Alright, anyway. Back to this man self-promoting.
Assets, which is why I created Polygon, a library of models, textures, and HDRs that work in any 3D software. Get started today at polygon.com. Welcome back to the Donut Show,
I'm using his content
virtual donuts that we
do streaming.
Eat.
So,
in this part, we're going to be making the icing. So, with our wonderful donut here selected, we're going to well, first of all, yeah, like icing. I mean, you could do it a million ways. You could like add a plane and then like model it out and try and pull it down and then sculpt it and do a bunch of different ways. The easiest way really whenever you're doing something is to like try to reuse part of your mesh wherever you can. So we've already got the shape of a donut. We can duplicate our donut, shave off half of it, and then we've basically got icing. So that's what we're going to do.
Modifiers
so
tutorial?
Enter into edit mode and we want to select half of our donut. So if we went into, you can see that, like, if we looked at it from this, you know, if we drew, you can see we're missing part of it, right? Because it's like,
only select,
this is one of those cases, is what I'm trying to say, where you need to use straight on, okay? So, or number pad 1, number pad 3, whatever you want to do, something like that. Okay, and by the way, when you use this, it also switches you to orthographic mode, okay? So perspective mode is where you've got the depth fall off. Okay?
Mushroom
and then orthographic mode is when it is like as if it was like on a focal length of like infinity. So you're seeing like the actual, what's the best way to describe it? No perspective, essentially, zero perspective. And you can toggle between that, by the way, also with a number pad 5 or by clicking this little gizmo on the right-hand side there at any point. Doesn't have to be in a certain view.
Whatever could it be?
Okay, cool. So if we were to just drag over this now,
wait, hold on.
It looks like we've got half of our donut.
I'm a professional.
However, if you moved around, you would see we're missing the other half of it. Okay, and that's because it's hard. Okay, the mesh is hard, and therefore to select on the other side of it, we have to be able to see through it. And we can do that by going up here and toggling X-ray. Or the hotkey for that is Alt-Z. And that will now show us right through it. And now when we drag over it, you can see that we've got exactly the top half of our donut all the way around.
Yeah, I just turned it to the wireframe.
Perfect. So we want to duplicate this and then separate it. Okay, so I'm going to hit Shift-D, which is how you duplicate. Or you can go up to Mesh and then click on Duplicate, wherever that would be.
There's the thing.
Right there. Duplicate at the top.
Hey, that in the menu, but I'm not going
to. Okay, now when you do that, you can see that it is now locked onto my cursor, okay? And it's telling me, where do you want to place this duplicate? And I don't. I want to leave it exactly where it was. So if I hit Escape or right-click, it's going to cancel the movement and put exactly where it was, but it has now duplicated it. Now what we want to do is move this to its own
I've used a slightly different technique here. Hold on. So the way he wanted us to do it was doing that and selecting that like that. In the orthographic view, which would be like there-ish. Yeah, that worked pretty well. But I did it by going to the top orthographic without using X-ray. Selecting that. So there's two different ways to do the same thing. Cool. Both of which I learned from this guy's tutorials.
Objects, because you can see that we've now got vertices on top of vertices, and they need to be their own separate objects. So to do that, the hotkey is P. P for part of the mesh. Go to another, I don't know. It's P. For whatever reason, it's always been P. And we're looking for selection. So separate by the selected part of the mesh. Okay. And now in object mode, if we switch out of X-ray mode, you can see that we now have two objects. And actually we can see them up here in the outliner as well. Okay. And now just very quickly, because I know that some of you will have just messed up accidentally, and you are now screaming at the screen, oh no, how am I going to fix this? When you did this step, you duplicated it, you right-click to cancel it, and then you accidentally did a single click. If you clicked something else, you've now got mesh on top of a mesh, and you don't know.
Replicate the issue. Then Shift D, right click. Oh no! I got this weird clippy mesh and I didn't separate it.
Which vertex is which? Like, which is the one that was the one that you just made, right? Or which one is the actual donut? So if you ever run into this problem, what you can do is to select only things that are connected, because these are no longer connected, right? There's bits that are not connected. It's Control L, or just mouse over it and then just hit a single L. L for loose parts. Is it? I don't know what it is. Linked. Oh, it's linked. Okay, select linked. There you go.
Control L.
Then when you do that, you can actually, find.
Then you can hit P.
Okay, so now I've actually just got just my donut and then just my icing. Fantastic. Okay, so up here in the outliner, you can see 2 objects, and it's probably a good time to name it. Okay, so you can name it by just double clicking in the outliner, and we can call it
donut
icing. Another way to name it is if you select, if you've just got your object
I would call it frosting,
anywhere in your
normally,
3D viewport.
but
it's the same hotkey as Windows renaming files. It's F2, and I can now type in donut, and there we go. So 2 things, and we could organize it however we want. Cool. So our icing is currently looking like a skin tight something. It's got to have some thickness to it, okay? And we can do that with the modifiers. Okay, so going over here to your modifier stack again, we are looking for
where's the thickness modifier?
Solidify.
Oh, it's solidify.
Right? There really needs to be a search function for the modifier stack, but there's just a lot here at the moment. So solidify. Okay. Now when we do this, you might not have actually really seen much change. If you went into wireframe mode, which you could do by hitting Z and then dragging to the left to go wireframe, or up here, so this is solid view mode, this is wireframe mode, okay? In wireframe mode, we're able to see just the raw mesh without any faces. You can see that it looks like a donut within a donut, but it's got thickness to it, but it is pointing it in the wrong direction. So this offset setting here from -1, we want to change that to 1. And now go back to solid view. Okay, so that is like a doona of icing.
Well, you can kind of see it, but it's not as extreme
our thickness
in
down to be
my
something
thing.
A little more reasonable. And by the way, when you're dragging these values here, here's a tip. You can see that it's like really hard to control because subtle movements is what I need, but it's moving it by a lot. If you hold down Shift, that is not incremental. What is it? Smooth movements? Subtle movements. Yeah. Anyways, holding down Shift when you need to use small numbers. And Control, by the way, will snap it to increments. So I use that actually quite a lot. So yeah, Shift for smooth movements and Control for incremental, or both. Smooth, like subtle and incremental. Anyways, all right, I'm giving you all the hotkeys and everything at once. I hope it is not too much for you. All right, I'm gonna go for like something like a 0.0015 of icing because I want it to look somewhat thick, but like not too thick. Okay. Now, something to keep in mind is that this edge here, it looks kind of weird for a lot of reasons. If we went into flat shading mode, you can see that it's basically created like a hat, a hat on our donut, okay? And the reason for that is the order of our modifiers here. So a modifier is, what is the best way to think of it? Well, it's working from top to bottom. That's how we'll describe it. Okay, modifiers are fantastic because at any point we can change these settings. It is a non-destructive way of working. This subdivision setting that I had before, I think it's too high. So I can come in here and I can change these settings, okay? Make it lighter. If it was not, if I was to apply it or I did it a different way, I could not change those settings. Non-destructive. It is fantastic.
Cubicing.
It also means that, it's working from top to bottom. So what I want to do is move this above my subdivision, which I can do by just dragging these dots at the top here, just dragging that up. And you can see that now it's doing if I just turn that off, it's doing the thickness part first, and then it is smoothing it, which means that edge there that was like this before is now being forced to go like this because of the subsurf, because it adds those points and then it kind of averages them out, which is, how subdiv works.
All right.
There we go. Cool. So now, I don't know, now that
makes
thickness
sense.
doesn't look like enough. So I'll just increase that a little bit. And I'm going to go shade smooth again. Okay. Lovely. Well, we
That's
make good
a
time.
mushroom.
Yeah, let's just jump to the next video. We're actually going to start modeling in the dripping parts of our icing in the next part and doing a little bit of sculpting as well. So click here to join me in the next part. I'll see you there. Join over 1 million 3D artists who use Polygon's models and textures to help them make better renders faster. Join for free at polygon.com. Congrats on not giving up yet. It's always fun.
I saw a new message,
Whenever you
but it was
release
just
a
gnomes,
series,
like
it's
by
fun seeing like the
deciding
drop
to
after every part
say hi
as
again, I
people
guess.
quit. So if you did make it, hey, you're staying on track. You haven't given up.
Actually, that's an interesting phenomenon. Let me check the views. The 238.
To make renders like these,
248.
This tutorial series was
350.
If you've just
nearly 700,000. So that is one.
This tutorial series
to a half.
To make renders like.
Then it goes down another 100.
Join over 1.
But it only peters out a little on that one.
Up yet. It's always fun. Whenever you release a multi-part tutorial series, it's just fun seeing like the viewership drop after every part as people quit.
That is kind of funny.
So if you did make it, hey, you're staying on track. You haven't given up yet. No, I do hope that you can all stay through. In this part, we are going to be making our icing look more like icing, more dribbled down rather than like a yarmulke or like half of a bagel or something. Like if I just cut this in half, I feel like that would look pretty close to a bagel. Yeah, it does. We want to make it look more like icing and also make our donut underneath also
need to
have
look
a little bit more shape. So, the icing. Okay. Now, we want to be able to see our mesh and like manipulate things and everything here, but we can't because it's mostly hidden by our Solidify modifier. So in your modify stack over here, I want to get a t-shirt. I want a little dribbly bit. So you can more shape. So making our icing look more like icing, more dribbled.
I didn't
down
have the right thing
like
selected when I hit 4.
Or like half of a bagel or something. Like if I just cut this in half, I feel like that would look pretty close to a bagel. Yeah, it does. We want to make it look more like icing and also make our donut underneath also have a little bit more shape. So, the icing. Okay, now we want to be able to see our mesh and like manipulate things and everything here, but we can't because it's mostly hidden by our Solidify modifier. So in your modify stack over here, if we just uncheck this button here, then it will no longer display in edit mode, so I can work with the mesh here. But then I go back to object mode, then you can see the Solidify modifier again. So that's what we want. Okay.
Oh, this little bit makes it so you can't see it in edit mode.
I got to turn on my screen keys tool because it's turned off. There we go. If I move this down with G and then went back to object mode, you can see that we've got something that looks like a little droop, a little dribbly bit. So you can guess we are going to be doing quite a bit of that.
It kind of goes down.
I'm going to turn on proportional editing, as you could probably guess, so that now when I move down, I can scroll up, or no, scroll down and increase the fall off, and now I can create a big dribbly bit. But you'll notice that straight away, there's a couple of problems. Okay, so for one...
Oh, I'm so smart.
This bit is sticking straight out, and then also, this bit of our icing
so fucking
is
good at
clipping
fucking
donut,
3D modeling.
A whole bunch of fixing and like manually going there. It's not good. So it would be great if we could make it snap to the face underneath. And there is a feature just for that.
There's a fucking feature for that.
Is it
that?
right up here. Okay,
it's fucking that. I am God.
Okay. Now, quick just overview of snapping. Snapping, you can always, whether you go up there and like turn it on or not, you can always temporarily enable it by holding down Control. Okay.
Wait.
So this default is set to increment. So if I'm moving an object, rotating, scaling, that's transforming. Okay, so it's snap during transform.
God damn it! Why is it doing that?
If I'm moving it, if I just hold down Control as I move it, I am temporarily restricting its movement to the grid floor underneath it, basically, because that's the increment that it's looking at. Okay, so I can only
I've got to hit
control to that.
Control to make it not
do that. Same thing as if I was to check that, turn that button on, and then move it without hitting control. Okay, so there's no difference between holding control or not holding control. It functions the exact same way. It's just that this way lets you do it without having to hold control, basically. But that's also another good point, because there's a hotkey for it. I can't remember what it is, but you sometimes hit it accidentally without realizing, and then you're like, why can't I move things properly? It's all messed up, and that's actually a common beginner question. Why can't I move things? Just check that that's not turned on. Just check, yeah, because it's probably turned on. Anyway, okay, so coming back.
This is coming a number of bits too late. Hold on.
So if I'm moving an object, rotating, scaling, that's transforming. Okay, so it's snapped during transform. If I'm moving it, if I just hold down control as I move it, I am temporarily restricting its movement to the grid floor underneath it, basically, because that's the increment that it's looking at. Okay, so I can only move it when I'm holding down control to that. And that is the exact same thing as if I was to check that, turn that button on, and then move it without hitting control. Okay, so there's no difference between holding control or not holding control. It functions the exact same way. It's just that this way lets you do it without having to hold control, basically. But that's also another good point, because there's a hotkey for it. I can't remember what it is, but you sometimes hit it accidentally.
Oh my god!
Without realizing, and then
oh my
like,
god!
why can't I move
that's
things
what
properly?
happened earlier.
It's all messed up, and that's actually a common beginner question. Why can't I move things? Just check that that's not turned on. Just check, yeah, because it's probably turned on. Anyway, okay, so coming back to our donut here. We want to make sure that that's turned on, and I want to change it from snap to increment to snap to face. Okay, and now that I do this, you can see that if I grab this edge here, sorry, that point.
Oh my god, I cannot believe it. All right, well,
that part of it is this edge here, at least, or this point, is now snapping to the face. Okay, but this part is not. Okay, so there. Okay, okay. I'll try not to say that too much. There is a function for this. Underneath snap to project individual elements, which doesn't explain anything really. Like, there's no way you would know that this is the button to push.
It does the thing.
No
okay, cool.
Clue that that's what to do, but it is. If we check that now, when we use our proportional fall off, anything that falls in the proportional fall off area will now also snap to the face underneath it, and that is how we do it. Now we can do whatever we want here. We can move this around. We can do whatever, and we can make our donut icing look like icing, and it will automatically snap and form the shape of the donut, which is perfect. Now, I've learned from doing donuts many, many, many times. I've made more virtual donuts than probably actual donuts I've ever eaten. I've learned that it's better if you work from reference. Okay, so go to your Google Images and type in donut icing, and then just find an image. Doesn't really matter which one, but like something that you like. Okay, if you like the.
Okay, hold on. Let me pause him. Let me pause his ass. Let me bring up donut. Go to images. Don't look at my fucking location. Creeps. So a lot of these are just kind of exceedingly flat. I guess the droops happen when you are piping them on, and the flat ones are like, you dip them in a vat to do it, which makes more sense for like mass production. Alright, I found a handy dandy recipe. Making the pleading face emoji. Recipe.
The look of it, like this like extra dribbly one, you could get that. I happen to like this one here. Just save the image, put it somewhere, put it on your desktop, and then I'm going to show you how to bring this into Blender. So we want to split our window here, and you can do that one of two ways. One is to go basically over the edge, a divider of a window here, until you get those little arrows there so that you could change the size of this, right? And just right click there, and then you can say vertical or horizontal split. So, whoops, oh, that did nothing. Vertical split. Ta-da. So we've now got two windows. Another way to do it is to go to the top right-hand corner of your screen. So you get, there's no button for it, but your cursor becomes a little target pointer thing. And if you just click and drag to the left into it, it will now split the view. If you click and drag to the right, it will now join it. And that used to be the only way you could make extra windows in Blender. You just had to know to do that. There was a little like fold thing there. But anyways, it's kind of an old thing that they've kind of kept because it's pretty handy. So anyways, once I've split the view, this could be anything. So this is a whole bunch of all the features of Blender, and it goes deep. The one we're looking for is Image Editor, which allows you to, guess what? Just bring
Image Editor?
Any old image. So there's...
Oh my god, hold on. Hold on. I'm gonna expose my fucking file structure by doing this, but... Saving that donut that is in my downloads now.
This is the one we're gonna do. Okay.
How do you do that?
Once I've split the view, this could be anything. So this is a whole bunch of all the features of Blender, and it goes deep. The one we're looking for is Image Editor, which allows you to, guess what?
Open.
Just bring in any old image. So this is the one we're going to do. Okay.
Downloads.
Now, I want to start to model some of the shapes here, and it should result in a far better one than if I just went by eye.
Oh my god, there's nothing
lessons here. You learn that you always think you know how something looks, and then you get to the end and you go, it doesn't look really good. And then you go, oh, I should have just used a reference photo because it's totally different than what I imagined.
What? How is it organized?
I want to get a t-shirt. It just says reference, reference, reference. Because it's like my biggest piece of advice for artists whenever they ask for feedback. I'm like, just look at reference. You got it wrong.
Here, hold on. What's the name of the file? I can type in vegan. There we go. Ignore the puppy chow. Who are you? There you are. Honestly, that spooked me.
And I do it wrong
Who's
myself.
That man?
Anyway, so to make this gloopy bit, you'd probably see that if I like grabbed one of these pieces and I like moved it down, it looks jagged. There's not enough detail here to create that bit. So what we need is more detail. So I am going to apply our subsurf, okay? So to apply anything, it's best to put it before your, like put it to the top, because that's essentially what it's going to do. It has to apply it, and then it's going to be reading from the top anyway, roughly. So I put it to the top, and it's okay. We'll fix this edge after. To apply the subsurf, if we go to this little drop-down arrow and then hit apply, or you can just hit Control-A while hovering over this, it will apply whatever is in the viewport amount, not the render amount, but the viewport amount. Okay, so I'm just going to, I'll just hit Control-A or hit apply. And now, whoops, why is that? Okay, all right. You can see that we now have double the amount of our of vertices on it. I'm temporarily hiding the donut, by the way, which you can do by hitting, you can hide anything temporarily by hitting H, and then Alt-H will bring anything back again. So if you just need to temporarily get something out of the way, H, and then Alt-H. Okay. But yeah, somehow this is like, I don't know, it's like clipping through it, which we could, yeah, it's odd that that's happening. You can see that if I just like randomly click here, that I'm going to bring this through. Yeah. There is another way, which I'll show you. We're going to use a shrink wrap modifier next, but I want to do this in order to just sort of show you, sort of like the problem-solving way of doing things. But anyways, all right, let's find where it was I was going to make that gloopy bit. It doesn't really matter. I can just do it right here. Okay, so I'm going to make a little bit that goes down. This bit over here, this bit can go down even further, like that, right there. And then this, I'm going to use
some of the goops like that, some of the big drips.
Now, if I pull, so there's a bug in Blender. I believe it's a bug because it's only happening occasionally, and it didn't happen in the last version of Blender. Pretty sure this is a bug just because I'm using the beta version of 3.0. For some reason, it is selecting the through my mesh, which should not happen, but it's happening right now, and it's very irritating. So I'm gonna have to report the bug after I finish recording this. But anyway, it just means I have to be careful. If I pull this down, you can see that yes, it's the other thing I wanted to do after the solidify modifier now is add another subsurf modifier so that we get that smooth edge back again. But if I move it down, it looks, it's a little too stretched. Okay, so you want to try and go as far as you can, but at a certain point you need extra mesh. You need to sort of break this line to create extra parts of the mesh. So the way to do that is to extrude. So if I select part of my mesh here, let's say 3 points like that, and I hit E, that will extrude. So I now get extra faces, extra vertices. And because this is turned on, it should also automatically snap to the face underneath it. And I'm going to do it again.
Shift E.
Let's just make an extra long gloopy bit. Okay, so you can see that is a totally different look, right? You've got this bit that is now like free flowing down there rather than feel like it's like stretching an edge. So modeling is, I mean, that's really like a big part of modeling is understanding topology and like where to, you know, add more detail where you need it and where not to, etc. I'm just pinching these in, by the way, by grabbing 2 points and then hitting S. But yeah, but you know, I'm trying to keep this fairly simple for this tutorial. Okay, so I've got that little bit there. Now let's do another little bit that goes next to it. So I'll grab this bit, I'll move this down. Let's grab 2 points. Just make this a short little gloopy bit. Or will it be? Yeah, that looks a little bit weird actually. It's so odd that that bug has happened. Never seen that bug before. Bugs get fixed surprisingly quickly in Blender, by the way, if you're curious. They are hard to come across because with an open source software like Blender, like so many people are using it and so many people are reporting bugs that, yeah, it is surprisingly more stable than 3ds Max Maya. I say that now and like people will be raging in the comments. No, it's not. It's you know, but I'm pretty sure that's like
you got that bug you mentioned.
Agreed upon in the community. But anyways, not to toot Blender's horn because it's definitely not perfect, but it does seem to be fairly stable. That's one of its great points. All right, and you know what? I might make another little gloopy bit over here. You know, I don't want to make this, you know, these parts too long, but I do want to make this look good, and I want to show you sort of the thought process that goes into it. Because some people will then go like, why does his donut tutorial take, you know, why does it take 6 hours to make a donut? Well, it doesn't. But I can do it really quick if you want, but you won't learn anything. Anyways, now I'm making on the other side of the donut, let's say over here, like a really big gloopy bit that goes down. But so far down that it's going to extrude another piece down. Hitting E to extrude it down.
That doesn't look good.
And then I'll scale that in by hitting S. And let's just move this up and around. All right, that's pretty good. And then I'll make this bit next to it, because that seems to be a common thing. When you've got one gloopy bit, there's another bit that's right next to it. I don't know if that's true or not. Just sort of making it up as I go.
I think I fucked that up.
Cool. Awesome. Well, let's just say we continued that all the way around.
Oh, I probably added some...
Make it look as good as you want.
Extruded it multiple times.
Now, another thing to learn is that donuts, unlike this one, I mean, this is actually pretty good, but you could see that the edge, like the donut shape, something happens in the middle of it, okay? And you might be able to see it in other reference photos. But basically, usually it's like divoted. It's like it's fat all around it, and then this part on the edge, this one's probably a clear photo, it sort of cuts into it a little bit. And the reason for that, I actually recorded a video that I'll put on the screen here. The reason for that is that when it's cooked, it's put into a fryer. It sits and it just like floats. So half of it is submerged in this fryer, and then it flips, and then they do the other half. So the part that's like resting on the surface of the oil usually is cooked less, because I guess the oil is less hot, I guess. But I guess it would depend on the buoyancy of the donut, so maybe it doesn't happen all the time. But evidently, that seems to be one component of a donut, is that it has that bit that sort of goes in. So it's like it's fat up top, it goes in a little bit, and then it's fat down the bottom again. So let's do that in edit mode with our donut. But we need more geometry. Same problem as we did with the donut icing straight away. We've got the same problem here. So I'm going to apply my Subsurf Modifier over here, hit apply. Now I've got double the geometry, and I don't need to add another one because I don't really need it right now. And now I'm going to hit O, whoops, O again, turn that on. Disable snapping, because I no longer need that, or I don't need it for this step anyway. And then using my proportional fall off, because I do want that, I'm just going to make it like a little bit flat on the inside part here. Okay, cool. All right, now, this is now way off. Okay, so why did I do it in this order? Right, why, Andrew? Why didn't we start shaping it the way like that? Because now it would seem like we have to go through here, turn on this, and like snap it for each one of these parts, and that's just annoying. Well, you don't, okay? Because there is, and I did it in this order because I want to show you there's two ways to make something snap. The other one is the shrink wrap modifier. So the shrink wrap modifier, if I click this little target eyedropper here, the eyedropper, whenever you see that, it just means click it and then select on your viewport which object you want to target. If you hit that, it will now snap to the mesh.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to rewind that quite a bit, actually. Because I have decided to put a shitload of detail into this icing. So. And that is, it's giving me that same error. I think I would like it more if I did that. What? Okay. What the fuck? There we go. That looks normal. Geez, I had to do a shitload of times there. Okay. Cool.
Fat down the bottom again. So let's do that in edit mode with our donut. But we need more geometry. Same problem as we did with the donut icing straight away. We've got the same problem here. So I'm going to apply my Subsurf Modifier over here, hit apply. Now I've got double the geometry, and I don't need to add another one because I don't really need it right now. And now I'm going to hit O, whoops, O again, turn that on. Disable snapping because I no longer need that, or I don't need it for this step anyway. And then using my proportional fall off, because I do want that, I'm just going to make it like a little bit flat on the inside part here. Okay.
So how do you do that?
Over here, hit apply. Now I've got double the geometry.
Applied the
and
thing.
I don't need to add another one because I don't really need it right now. And now I'm going to hit O.
Alt left click to select an edge loop. And you just forgot to specify. Okay, cool.
Whoops. O again, turn that on. Disable snapping because I no longer need that, or I don't need it for this step anyway. And then using my proportional fall off, because I do want that, I'm just going to make it like a little bit flat on the inside part here. Okay. Cool. All right. Now, this is now way off. Okay. So why did I do it in this order? Right. Why, Andrew? Why didn't we start shaping it the way like that? Because now it would seem like we have to go through here, turn on this, and like snap it for each one of these parts, and that's just annoying. Well, you don't, okay? Because there is, and I did it in this order because I want to show you there's two ways to make something snap. The other one is the shrink wrap modifier. So the shrink wrap modifier, if I click this little target eyedropper here, the eyedropper, whenever you see that, it just means click it and then select on your viewport which object you want to target. If you hit that, it will now snap to the mesh. Now, what's happened? Why does it look like, I don't know, pretty cool pattern, but yeah. Why is it doing that? It's because of the order of your modifier. So if something doesn't look right, check the order of your modifiers. It's working top to bottom. So it's giving thickness first, and then later on, it's shrink wrapping it to it. So obviously that's not right. Shrink wrapping goes first. Now that we've done that, you can see this is what it looked like before. This is what it looks like after. So shrink wrap modifier will try to find the shortest distance between each of these points and the mesh underneath.
Shrink wrap, solidify, subdivision.
And it just so happens to usually get it right. Just check the inside part, make sure there's no problems there. But yeah, that's how you can do it. So now we've got something that looks a little bit more like the shape of a donut.
That's a bit odd. Hey, you guys. What are you doing there? What is going on there? Hold on. Hello?
Right, because the edges are, that the sides of it are not jutting out. They seem to be flat. And that's kind of cool. It's kind of what we want. I might actually make this bottom bit just a little bit fatter. So I'm going to hit Alt-S on this. Whoop.
What are you guys doing? Oh, there's that. There's that. There's that. And what are you? What is this? Eh? Eh? Who are you? What are your intentions with my daughter? What are your intentions with my donut? There. Oh, L? Yeah, it's still connected to everything. We're not? Well, I just deleted some edges. Boy, oh boy, did that not help. Okay, delete the vertices. That also didn't help. Can I delete the faces? No, I didn't have any faces selected. Oh, I must have accidentally extruded them when I selected something else, so there were extra lines in there. That makes sense.
Just turn off this. Alt-S, just make this a little bit chunkier. Just add a little bit of interest to it. And then, yeah, just go through it and continue making your icing droopy like you want. Now, this was one way to do this droopiness, and it's okay, but it doesn't look as good as it could, right? Because when this drip goes down here, you can see that it becomes more bulbous, right? As the liquid sort of forms that droplet there. And we are missing that. We are going to do that in the next step, the next part. We are going to jump into sculpting.
Next part is making
just basically
the ice cream a little
the
more
basic
bulbous.
Sort of form that you want, but we're going to do more detail.
And I am actually seeing that ring in there, kind of.
Sculpting in
this
the
is
next
some
part.
weird flavor of homemade
click
donut
on the screen, and I will see you in the next part. See why professionals like Oscar Wojnski trust Polygon for their models and textures.
Ooh, that looks cool as hell. Hold on. I don't know how well y'all can see that on the picture-in-picture, but that's a cool looking image. This is part 5. Check out the tutorial for that. Also in part 5, the views have gone down by like 100K.
Sign up for free at polygon.com to see the difference that high-quality assets can make to your renders. Welcome to part 5. We have, up until this point, just been working in edit mode, right? And manually coming in here with our points and sort of moving and manipulating them. But there is another method called sculpting, which can be beneficial in certain cases, and in some cases highly necessary, and allows you to use brush strokes to move your vertices around. And that's what I'll show you right now. So If we were to start sculpting here, it would just be terrible because we've got all these modifiers, right? We've got shrink wrap, solidify, subdivision, blah, blah, blah. When you start sculpting, you don't have any of that, okay? So what you need to do is apply what you want before you start sculpting. So we want all of these applied in this order. So you can go to the little drop down and hit apply, or you can use the hotkey Control A and Control A again.
Apply.
Okay, so when I do that, I've applied also that subdiv modifier, right? So it's given me double the amount of vertices, which is, again, what I would need, because if I go back to what it looked like before, that's not enough to really play with it. Because what we want to do is we want to create some of these little globules. Pretend that's a word, globules, little droplets that sort of bulge out. So we need more vertices. So I'm going to hit Control A on that. And now
I'm not entirely sure how much of this tutorial I'm absorbing.
Sculpt mode. Let's do
hopefully
it.
It's a lot.
Go up to the top tab of your window there. So these are workspaces. Yeah, all these ones along here. These are workspaces. And basically, it's just like a pre-configured layout. So instead of having this, it's just like pre-configured to work this way. But you can also swap in and out of certain modes wherever you are without changing your mode, just by hitting Control Tab. I suppose I should turn
economics.
Hit that.
Furries.
Okay, awesome. So Sculpt mode. If you just start drawing, just paint across it, you'll see that you've got some sculpting happening. And there are a number of different tools within sculpting. The draw one is the most basic. It's literally a sort of a push-pull based on where it is that you're looking from. It'll just basically push the surface out towards you. And then the opposite of that, if you hold down Control, that is sort of the reverse of a brush. So you can see that it's now digging into it. So a whole bunch of these you could use. I'd say the most common is it's probably grab, which you can use by just tapping G or hitting that one down there. And that enables you to click and pull out.
I just went for it on Inflate.
Yeah, just anywhere. Now, the brush size of this is really small. So you can change the brush size up here. I don't know why, but my mouse is doing this weird thing where it doesn't register my movement until like I start moving. It's very bizarre. Anyways, but you could do it there, but actually the hotkey, which is just a far easy way of doing it, is F. And then F, you just drag out until you've got the size that you want, basically, and then you just do a single click. And then Shift F will give you the strength. So you can see in the top, actually, as I move, you can see the strength value changing there as well. But I'll just leave that as the default, and you can see, yeah, now dragging makes a lot more sense. So, what is the difference between like using grab here and then using it here? I mean, it's just like ease of use, like which one makes more sense depending on what it is that you're trying to do. So some people would find that working with grab in certain areas would be preferable, and then others might find, as I do sometimes, that you want to see the mesh. You want to actually be able to like control it and take vertices and move them on specific axes. Oh yeah, that thing's still kicking in. I'll turn that off. Yeah, so that might be useful, but in this case, we want to do some sculpting. So, okay, so grab. What's another one that's really heavily used is smooth, and this will obviously smooth out detail. Now, you can also temporarily activate smooth anywhere, regardless of what tool you've got, just by holding down Shift. So if you just use Shift, you can see that it's just temporarily activated the smooth tool. So if you want it, because it's such a, I don't know why the default is set to 0.7. That seems way too high to me. But if you're using another tool and you start holding down Shift, you don't have the control to change the strength. The strength is still reflected over here. So if you want to, I would suggest turning that down to like a 0.2, and then when you use it, it's like now a lot more subtle when you use the smooth tool. Okay, now the other one that I'd say it's pretty heavily used, even for sculpting characters and things, is Inflate, and that is the one that we really want to use here for these globules. So if I just click in one place and I don't move my mouse, it doesn't build upon it unless you've got airbrush as a setting turned on. So you can see if you hit N, you're on your properties, and then go to tool, this is showing your active tool. And it's also here, by the way. So these are your properties, right, for your scene and everything else. But this one at the top there is active tool. So what is the difference between this and this? Nothing. It's completely the same. It was just a habit that I went to properties. But yeah, it's over here now. So if you turn on, let me just find it actually. There it is, airbrush. So if you, basically that enables you to, you don't have to like move your mouse. You could just click on it and leave it wherever it is that you want, and then it will just build upon that area basically. So I can click there, I can click here, like such. I don't know. What was that video of the Miss America and such as things and such? I don't know. Poor girl. You don't want to become a meme for something like that. So airbrush is working. It works fine over here, but it's not working so great over there. So I'm going to switch it back to space, which basically means it'll activate when you draw out further enough that it thinks there should be another dot there, basically. But anyways, I'm basically looking at my reference photo again, which I can bring back by dragging this out and then going to image editor, and from the drop down, just click on this. I can see that, yeah, basically on the areas, not just on like these globule bits, but here as well, like up here, you can see that it's like a thin film of that icing, but down there, that's where it all rolls off to. So really on the outer edge there, I want to do some painting. So I'm just clicking along that edge there with the Inflate brush. If you find that it's too much, you can use Shift F to turn it down and get more subtle movements, or turn it up. And obviously, this will work a lot better if you have a stylus. So a stylus has the one big advantage. I mean, not just because it's
I have
you can flick your wrist.
Stylus downstairs.
It's not really the big advantage of styluses. It's more so because
it's not right now.
You've got pen pressure. So you can subtly do like and then and taper it and do different pen pressures. It's like even like
you have a stylus.
Really basic styluses will have like 2,000 levels of pen pressure that it'll detect as your fingers like pushing on it or whatnot. Whereas your mouse has one. It's a binary on and off thing. So I'm using mouse right now because I know that most of you watching are also using a mouse. So I want to show you that it is possible. But I also want to say, I recommend getting a stylus if you can afford it. And especially if you want to get into characters, or, don't rush out and invest in something before you're absolutely sure that you enjoy Blender and that this is something you want to do. But at some point, you'll probably realize as you get into 3D more that, a stylus is probably a worthwhile investment. So you can pick them up cheap, man, really cheap. Just look on like Facebook Marketplace, just type in Wacom, WACOM. That's sort of like the leading brand. But there's a bunch of like cheap,
I got a new Wacom nowadays. My dad currently uses it for presentations mostly.
Anyways, another one I'm going to do is just across here, because we got this Sculpt Brush out.
No, what happened to you?
Variance.
Hold on.
It's too high. I'll turn that down. A little bit of variance to our top, our icing here. Why not? So I'm just doing a few little dabs, a dab here, a dab there, just to give a little bit of a wavy surface. Why not? And then also down here, although it's not really going to be seen that much.
It kind of drips out.
I'll just make sure that there's a little bit of variance here. Right? It's usually where it's like, it's all sort of mushed together in the center anyway. Would there be like a little bit of the dough sticking out underneath? I don't know. Donut shops are popular, man. Like, I don't know if that's like a revelation to anyone else, but like, I don't know. I try to eat healthy and like avoid sugary things, right? And so I just, for my whole life, I've just been ignoring like donut shops. But then I went there to take a like reference photo, or that video that I showed you. And I was like, wow, there's a queue. And it wasn't like a artisanal donut shop or anything. This was just like your regular Donut King, just in the shopping center. I was like, wow. So there are people that are just like,
I don't know entirely how much I want to like
not
put
judging,
into this
not
icing,
judging,
but
okay. Well, I mean, look, okay.
Because it's already going to be a slightly worse product than what he's showing off over there.
It's one of those things where it's like you think the
rest
of the
world too much of an emphasis on it.
View it, right? But it's not. Everyone's got their own
I could
snacks.
make this look more detailed and more pretty but that is a lot of effort.
Poor idea of a snack. Maybe
and I am live on stream
Looking
and would
at
like
my
to
donut
talk.
here. Let's do some more. Yeah, might as well. We got the Sculpt Brush out. So select your donut. If you can't do that, you have to Control Tab. This is how I'm doing this, or you can go up here. You have to swap to Object Mode, remember, before you can switch to another object to start sculpting that. So when you've got the other object selected, then Alt Tab and do some sculpting over here as well. So I'll do a little bit of inflation. Not hyperinflate. No. Only the US government can do that. I don't know anything about politics or economics. I just see stuff on the news. Hyperinflation. I'm like, ooh, doesn't sound good. All right. Just a few. Maybe I need a little bit more strength. Wow, I don't know. Is this my blender or is this mouse? My mouse that's doing that. I don't know. It's very bizarre. All right. Well, maybe I just need to reformat my computer. It's been a while. Okay. How's it looking? Pretty good. I'll swap back. I'll do a little bit here. A dab here, a dab there. You sort of, you get the idea, right? I don't need to show you everything. Play around with it. Grab brush, G, inflate brush, I, and smooth brush. You just hold down shift wherever you want. Don't do it too much. That's kind of a common mistake. People smooth out things when they're sculpting, and you just smooth out all the detail. It's not good. You want to do just a little bit here and there. Okay, and I'll pull that up there. All right, so you can see the differences, right, that sculpting has. It's more of a fluid, organic motion that you can sort of, it's more creative than the edit mode where you're coming in here with the vertices. But there are pros and cons of each.
That'll look like it'll like
mode, you can't do that snap to faces thing, right? Especially when you've got, a surface like this, right? That's got volume now because we've applied the solidify thing. You can't do that snap thing. So because we want it wrapping around our donut, it's good that we did it in this order. Otherwise, we would be out of luck. Yeah. It's also a little bit harder to do like this part, right? Like it's like this part needs to go out, this part needs to go in. Yeah, it's just, there are certain things that you'll be like, oh, it's just going to be easier if I just swap into edit mode, and I'll do it there. And then I'll swap back to sculpt mode when I want to do something there.
Brainium.
You just sort of get better at it. Anyways, I'm going to jump back to layout mode now.
It's getting a little late.
I guess sort of, maybe it's more of like the default view, but layout is the one that you normally stay on. That's where at least that's where I stay rooted. And then because we've got like some of this like little jagged edges coming in, I'm going to add in another Subsurf modifier. If you've got a poor computer and you find that it's like rendering becomes complex later, or it's hard to move around your viewport, you might not want to. You might want to just like delete that perhaps. But on my case, I would just want to make that look nice and smooth. So that's why I've left that in.
Okay,
all right.
4 more.
Well, that is sculpting.
I have.
That's good. We made some good time.
Successfully heard my computer start shutting.
Video as we get into materials, lighting, and rendering.
Okay.
To make renders
next up
like
is
these,
basic rendering, which means we're gonna get our initial render of the donut, and that'll be cool as fuck. And I'll probably go to intermission and get some like more food and water, get some more rations. Yeah, just so everyone's aware. I'm gonna get rid of this.
You need high quality assets, which is why I created Polygon, a library of models, textures, and HDRs that work in any 3D software. Get started today at polygon.com. We have a juicy looking, delicious donut.
My donut's a little less juicy looking, but rendering, good for a beginner.
Rendering and lighting and shading and everything else. So as I explained at the start, if you go and you hit a render, it will take a snapshot of what you've got from the point of view of the camera. Now, it has done that. It just so happens our donut is really, really tiny because when we scaled down our donut, we didn't change the light or the camera. So to bring this camera in here, there's a couple of ways you could do it. I mean, you could just, drag it in and try and manually position it. The way I like to do it is I get my view where I like it, like where I want my camera like this, and then I hit the, let me turn on the screen keys too. I hit the hotkey Control-Alt number pad 0, and that will snap the camera to that
location.
Control-Num-0. Alternatively, and this is something that users of other 3D software is most familiar with, in your properties, so I just hit N to bring up properties, under View, you can click Camera to View. And then when you move like normally, like orbiting around your scene, the camera will stay locked to it. If you don't have that checked, if you're looking through the camera and then you just start panning, you can see you've broken it, right? And now the camera is there. So doing it like this means that you can basically put your camera, position it wherever you want it, and it'll always stay locked. Some people leave it always locked. Like I work with a guy who's like learned 3D with 3ds Max, and that's what he's familiar with. He just leaves that checked. To me, it's weird. I hate opening up a scene and seeing this, so I always uncheck it, but it's up to you. Anyways, okay, position my camera there. I hit render. All right, the light is really far away. Let's bring the light in to be somewhere close by. Here's another hotkey that's actually pretty convenient in this case. The lamp's all the way over there. Our donut is there. If you hit Alt-G, that will actually snap any object, any selected object to the center of the 3D viewport, which is where these axes lines intersect, which just so happens to be where our donut is. So I'll just move this over here. Like
what did I even do there?
Like basic directional light left to right. And let's look through our camera. All right. And also I might as well. I don't like that intersecting.
I mean, I can drag it up a little. But also, what did I do? What was that? Some things are being weird and clippy over here. It's a beginner model. No one judge me. It's illegal. Control Alt Numpad 0. Honestly, cool. Be like that. Okay, cool.
Through my those grid lines intersecting through my donuts, just annoying me. All right, let's move this up. Here's the other way you can move the camera. If you don't like checking that, if you just select the camera frame, then you hit G and just move it like any other object. So that's another way I like to do it. All right. Okay, so now hit F12 to do a render. Okay. The lighting is really bright because, of course, it was set for a different scale, really far away. Just set it to like somewhere around 20 will be fine for this demonstration. F12, there we go. Okay, cool. So we've now taken a snapshot from the point of view of our camera, and it has calculated the lighting information. It's calculated the shading and all that good stuff. Okay. There is a way, though, to see that exact result in your viewport. And you can do that, top right-hand corner, viewport shading, set the method to rendered. Haha. And now look at that. We have the exact same result as if we were to hit F12, but we have it in real time as we pan around. So this is the rendered view mode. You can also change this at any point just by holding down Z or Z on your keyboard and just dragging out. So solid view, that's the one that we've been using up until this point. There's also wireframe, and this will just show you the mesh, which is handy sometimes. Pretty similar, by the way, to this one, X-ray, but just different. And then you've got material preview, which is it's used for material previews. It's basically, it uses like an HDR light. So instead of the lighting that you've got in your scene, it's just like a quick way to preview materials because it uses an HDR so you can see reflections and everything else to quickly test things. But rendered. Very cool. There you go. We've got rendered. So how is it that we're able to, like see things in real time and whatnot? Because rendering is normally a very intensive process for the CPU and the processor. It has to calculate all this lighting and shading information. And that is where we need to talk about render engines. By the way, the size of this camera is bugging me. I'm just going to change the viewport display of this. Won't make any difference to a render. It's just for the viewport, just something more reasonable.
Viewport display.
And that is where we need to talk about render engines. By the way, the size of this camera is bugging me. I'm just going to change the viewport display of this. Won't make any difference to a render, just for the viewport, to something more reasonable.
Viewport display.
Okay, render engines. Okay, so what we're looking at right now with this is the EV rendering engine. Okay, this is a render engine that Blender comes with. So what on earth is a render engine? So 3D software, technically, it's just for creating meshes and animations and everything else. Rendering is often used. You use a third-party tool, or you pay a company. So basically, there are a whole bunch of render engines out there. You've got V-Ray, Arnold, Redshift, Corona, Octane. Those are sort of the big five. And then also Cycles and EV. Cycles and EV are what Blender comes with. They're built-in rendering engines, and you can swap between them right here. You've got EV and you've got Cycles. Workbench, just ignore that. That is a it basically takes
watts, which should be fine. We rotate it to get the donut's good side. I know I sound ridiculous. Okay.
say like you hit render and it's the exact same result as if you're in solid view mode. Like to make renders like these, you need high quality assets that it is real time. When I hit render here, I get a result in less than a second.
How's the modeling going?
Real-time,
decent.
Because it's real time. If I wanted to do it in cycles,
can't really keep active
and I was to hit render, I would see it has to whir through it. It's also counting samples here, and it's giving me a result in 4 seconds. All right, so that is.
Where?
It's used for material previews. It's basically, it uses like an HDR light. So instead of the lighting that you've got in your scene, it's just like a quick way to preview materials, because it uses an HDR so you can see reflections and everything else to quickly test things. But rendered, there you go. We've got rendered. So how is it that we're able to, like see things in real time and whatnot? Because rendering is normally a very, very intensive process for the CPU and the processor. It has to calculate all this lighting and shading information. And that is where we need to talk about render engines. By the way, the size of this camera is bugging me. I'm just going to change the viewport display of this. Won't make any difference to a render. It's just for the viewport, just something more reasonable. Okay, render engines. Okay, so what we're looking at right now with this
might redo the donut after I finish the tutorial.
Okay, this is a render engine that Blender comes with. So what on earth is a render engine? So 3D software, technically, it's just for creating meshes and animations and everything else. Rendering is often used. You use a third-party tool, or you pay a company. So basically, there are a whole bunch of render engines out there. You've got V-Ray, Arnold, Redshift, Corona, Octane. Those are sort of the big 5, and then also Cycles and EV. Cycles and EV are what Blender comes with. They're built-in rendering engines, and you can swap between them right here. You've got EV and you've got Cycles. Workbench, just ignore that. That is a, it takes a, like, you hit render and it's the exact same result as if you're in solid view mode, like the viewport kind of thing. It's used for basically like taking screenshots, essentially, for like breakdowns and things. Okay, so EV. EV is a real-time rendering engine. If you've played with Unreal Engine, Unity, if you've played with sort of any 3D tool that has sort of shading information in it in real time, you're able to see things in real time, that is a real-time rendering engine. Cycles, if we switch to Cycles, you will notice something. It takes longer, and you get this grain that appears over everything, okay? And also, you will probably notice it is slower, okay? It is no longer real time. You can see that it's sort of lagging here. Cycles is some people call it an offline rendering engine. It's also a path tracer, that's the more technical term, or ray tracer. What Cycles is doing that EV is not is it is calculating light bounces. Okay, so you can see in here, and you'll see this difference. If I swap from Cycles, so this is Cycles. Now see how light it looks inside here? If I swap to EV, watch what happens. It's just dark. All right, there's no light that's entering into that area there. Okay, so the advantages that you get with a real-time engine like EV is that it is real-time. When I hit render here, I get a result in less than a second. In fact, it should be real-time, really, because it's real-time. If I wanted to do it in Cycles and I was to hit render, I would see it has to whir through it. It's also counting samples here, and it's giving me a result in 4 seconds. All right, so that is a huge difference, and that's 4 seconds is the fastest ever. It escalates from there, okay? But you get better results with Cycles. So it really depends on what it is you're using it for. Some people swear by EV, they just love it, especially if you're doing like non-photorealistic work, like motion graphics, advertising sometimes. What else? Cartoony, stylized things, you can kind of get away with it. I just love Cycles because everything sort of works. The thing about EV is that you often have to change things to tweak it to make it look realistic, whereas Cycles is realistic from the start. Okay, but let's, one other thing, because if you're using Cycles, also, you might find it is really incredibly slow. And that might be because you're not using your GPU. So there are 2 ways to render. One is with your CPU, and that would be set to none if you're using your CPU. The other way is to use your GPU, which would be clicking one of these things. So CUDA and optics are what you'll see if you have a NVIDIA graphics card that is compatible. I have 2 Titan RTXs, yay me. I want to get 2 3090s. I'm no longer top dog. I want to upgrade, but I'm waiting for the prices to go down. You'll only see these options if you've got a NVIDIA card. I have never seen HIT before. Oh, okay, all right. It's the AMD one. Okay, so they're jumping in. That's good. Okay, so there are some options out there. So if you have a compatible card and you see those options, definitely use it because more than likely it'll be miles faster than CPU rendering. For context, let me show you. CPU on my CPU rendering, you can see it's going to take a while. I'm already past 4 seconds, and I'm not even a 10th into it. Not even 100th. Okay, it's getting faster. All right, it's speeding up because you can see it's figured out. Okay, so 16 seconds. So it's 4 times as long on my CPU. Now, obviously, that will change wildly depending on your hardware. Yeah, okay, and what's the difference between CUDA and optics, by the way? If you've got both, use optics. It's the newer one. It's only for newer cards. It's more compatible, and it will be faster. CUDA is older compatible, so you might not see it if you've got an older card. But use optics if you've got it. Okay, but let's swap it back to EV because I know that some people will want to use this tutorial just for EV because not everybody has a graphics card or anything that can really perform it, and you might just have to use EV. So I'm going to show you how we can get this working with EV. First of all, let's add in a mesh so that we can see how it's going to look with shadows. Okay,
screenshot that.
This is where EV falls apart. It's shadows.
Should have
it doesn't really fall apart. It's where you need to start tweaking things. Cycles will just work. Okay, it's got bounce lighting. It's got the correct, like look that darkness under there, right? It's got Eevee starts to fall apart. Now, it just means you have to tweak settings with Eevee, okay? One of the big ones is lamp settings and shadow settings. Okay, so in Eevee, underneath shadows, one thing I want to do for a scene of this size is I want to change my cube size. Cascade is just for sun lighting. Cube size is for other sources of lighting. And this is sort of the resolution of your shadow. Okay, so you can see the difference that I just made there from 512 to, let's go up to 4096. It's going to be slightly slower to render, but you can see it's something of this closeness. It really does need that detail. Okay, so I've got that. Now, the other thing that I need to do is fix what on earth is happening with this shadow. How is it that shadow is able to go through there? Okay, again, now, this is one of the restraints, the problems with real-time engines is that it is not actually calculating like light. It's all like fakery. It's an illusion that it's able to calculate shadow. And you often need to tell the software how to treat the shadow better. How it's going to look with shadows, okay? This is where Eevee falls apart.
This all looks like ceramic.
Or it doesn't really fall apart. It's where you need to start tweaking things. Cycles will just work, okay? It's got bounce lighting. It's got the correct, like, look that darkness under there, right? It's got, Eevee starts to fall apart. Now, it just means you have to tweak settings with Eevee, okay? One of the big ones is lamp settings and shadow settings. Okay, so in Eevee, underneath shadows, one thing I want to do for a scene of this size is I want to change my cube size. Cascade is just for sun lighting. Cube size is for other sources of lighting. And this is sort of the resolution of your shadow. Okay, so you can see the difference that I just made there from 512 to, let's go up to 4096. It's going to be slightly slower to render, but you can see it's something of this closeness. It really does need that detail. Okay, so I've got that. Now, the other thing that I need to do is fix what on earth is happening with this shadow. How is it that shadow is able to go through there? Okay, again, now, this is one of the restraints, the problems with real-time engines is that it is not actually calculating like light. It's all like fakery. It's an illusion that it's able to calculate shadow. And you often need to tell the software how to treat the shadow better. And one of the big ones of a scene of this size with this lamp here, select your lamp, and then under here you've got bias settings. Bias is for reducing self-shadowing. And it's basically, you would change the scale of this depending on what size of scene you're building. In our case, we want to turn this all the way basically to its lowest amount because we're dealing with like millimeters. Okay, so I'm just turning that all the way down to 0. You've also got contact shadows, which can occasionally be helpful, but in our case, this case isn't really useful. Because that's another fakery, and you get all sorts of glitchiness, and I don't really want to talk. I don't want to talk about contact shadows. Well, maybe when we add the sprinkles, you might want to use contact shadows, but you want to use the absolute lowest amount you could possibly get away with. Some people go, it's not designed for true shadowing like this. Anyway, okay, so you can see I had to make a whole range of tweaks there, but I got the result. Now we haven't got any materials yet, so that is something else to consider. Is that you might see some differences now, and you think like, oh, there's not really that much of a difference between cycles and Eevee. Like this is just the start. Once you get further and further into it, there's you'll see bigger and bigger differences. Now okay, maybe I'll try and keep it. I won't talk about samples yet. Okay, so difference between cycles and Eevee. You get it, right? Bounce lighting. It's bouncing the light off the table on the cycles one, and it's casting it where it needs to. It goes in the hole. Light is bouncing around. Eevee, none of that. So what do you want?
That makes sense.
You might prefer the Eevee one. You might be totally fine with it. Something you have to do with Eevee, for example, is ambient occlusion, which will calculate basically in crevices and things. It will do what cycles does by default without needing to use that, right? That darkening of the effect there. So again, Eevee, you got to turn on things to try to make it look realistic, whereas cycles is realistic by default. All right, so let's do some materials now. Okay, let's get into it. With my icing here selected,
I'm going to
click
on
the material
my
icon
chair,
here,
but it's fallen off.
and I'll move this up.
Oh no!
So my head's not blocking
My
everything.
comfy.
And I will add a new material. Okay, now we'll get more into materials later on, but you can see there's a lot of settings here, a lot.
Okay.
Now this is the principled shader. It's actually based off of Disney's principled BSDF. With my icing here selected, I'm going to click the material icon here, and I'll move this up
material
so my head's not blocking everything, and I will add a new material. Okay, now we'll get more into materials later on, but you can see there's a lot of settings here. A lot. Now this is the principled shader. It's actually based off of Disney's principled BSDF paper they put out. It's pretty high tech. It actually makes things very simple to create a realistic material. You used to have to, for any material, like add nodes, like diffuse, and then I want some reflection. I have to add some reflection. I have to do this, and then tweak it with a Fresnel, and it was really complex, really complex. This is one of the key things that's enabled a lot of beginners and people to start making things faster, because it's now built into one shader and it automatically adjusts to the correct measurements, like roughness and reflection and everything, depending on what other values are. So it's really good. The one that you're probably looking for just color is base color. So I'll just set that to a nice pink color. All right. Then the other big one you change a lot is roughness down here. And this is the glossiness. It's often, roughness and glossy values. Different renderers call them different things. Glossy, is what other renderers call it. Roughness, they're inverts of each other, basically. Glossy is the invert of roughness, but they do it's the same sort of thing. So I want this is like how wet, like how freshly iced do you want your donut to look? I find it real icing, it's probably more around about a 0.25 or something like that. But I like it to look a little wet. It looks, in my opinion, more delicious when it's got some wetness to it. We'll get more into it as we do other things later on, but just as a basics. Then for my donut, I'll add another material.
New material.
Let's just add a basic color to it. And again, we'll do more with this later on. And then why not just make it interesting? We're not even going to use this plane in the final render. This is just so that we've got something nice to look at right now. And let's hit a render. Okay, cool. Now, oh, by the way, I didn't even mention this, but there's slots. So when you're rendering, if you just want to quickly preview two different things, you can change slots up to 8.
Different color.
So if you want to open up a new slot, you just switch to that slot first, and then you hit render, and then it'll save it into that slot. In my case, I'm going to put it in slot 2 again to override my cycles one, and I'll switch back to cycles. Okay, now the plot thickens. We have true reflections with our cycles rendering engine. Okay, it's ray tracing. Okay, so it's calculating the reflection of the end of our plane here, and you can see we've got some shine there.
Why not stick
now you can do that with Eevee, thank goodness, by turning it on. So again, some things you have to turn on: screen space reflections. And now you can see I've got a little bit of reflections coming off. Okay. Something else you might want to turn on is bloom. That is sort of the, what would you call it? Glare, maybe? Glare?
Motion blur?
I'm not really an Eevee guy, to be honest. I don't use it that often, but it's something you could turn on to add a little bit of glare to it or something like that. But there you go. So we got that, and then we got the cycles one. And it's, you start to understand it. Okay. Now let's add in something of this scale and of this material quality, which is icing, which if you've ever looked at my ear, for example, or anyone's ear in direct sunlight, you can often see through it. Can I get it so that you can see through it? Nah. Okay. But you get you see the blood vessels and your ears glow red in sunlight, right? That is scattering. It's light that is scattering through a surface. You see it, that's the example everyone gives, an ear, but also you see it in things like a glass of milk. You see light start to enter into it and sort of diffuse through the milk.
Yeah,
well, something of this scale and this type of material does the same thing. And it kind of feels hard, the donut feels hard, it's almost like it's made of concrete or something. It's because it doesn't have any of that scattering. So that is this value, subsurface scattering. So if I increase this to let's try 0.1. This radius here, you can see that it's changed it. It looks terrible. This radius here is actually in meters. Like how far does it scatter in meters? Shouldn't scatter that far. And it's also why there are 3 of them. That's the red channel, green channel, blue channel, which is probably, I don't know why it split it like that. Probably because of mass and the fact that, you know, different rays will spread at different wavelengths, like distances. I don't know. But either way, I just change all of them at once, which you can do by dragging down over the values. And then I just adjust it to, I'll just enter it in, 0.002, which is really, yeah, what is that? Is that millimeters? Hang on, let's try this. 2 mil, oh, you can't enter it in here, even though it is actually like in millimeters. But let's go 0.02. I think that is millimeters. No, that's 2 centimeters. 0.02. Okay, there we go. That's 2 millimeters. I try not to diverge from the script, Andrew. I've rehearsed this before. All right, now you can't see much here, and part of that is also because the subsurface color is the one that it is looking for. So what color should it be when it scatters through something? I usually make this like a more saturated version of the base color. I don't know if that's technically accurate, but it's sort of what I do. And then this subsurface value here would basically control like how much scattering do you want to have.
Yeah, this looks a little odd.
So, this is what it looks like before. I'm going to do another one right here. And let's just see now that we compare it, okay? So not much difference. And look, it's pretty hard to tell on something of this type of material. You will notice it a lot better when we've got the sprinkles on top, because we'll be able to see the shadows and everything like that. But you might be able to see a little bit there. I don't know. Anyways, then I'll do another one with cycles, because why not? And I'm going to be sticking to cycles for the rest of the tutorial until maybe the end. I'll try and sort of make it more compatible towards the end. But I generally try to stick to cycles because it does make it simple. And if you've got a card that can
the rendering tutorial is half an hour long.
It's pretty nice. It does. You will notice a difference, right, in overall quality with cycles. But again, I know it's not for everyone. So there are the 2 options for you. So, by the way, here's something else that you can do. So the material view that I mentioned, this preview mode, it is using an HDR, which is cool because you can see like the reflections on it and you can see the shape and you can understand how this would be helpful for building a material. You can tweak it and see everything in real time. It's great. If you change it to scene lights, it will take advantage of the lights that you have in your scene. And then if you check this button, Scene World, it is now taking advantage of everything, the whole world as well. So there is actually no difference between if you've got those 2 things checked and actually just using Eevee. So if I switch that to Eevee, you can see that I can swap between these. There is no difference. So what that means is I can keep my rendering engine to cycles. And then if I just want to preview everything in Eevee, I can keep it there. And then I can swap to cycles when I need it over here. Haha. Okay, I mentioned I was going to talk about samples. So that's what this grain is, okay? So the way path traces work is that, oh God, how technical do you want to get? It's a Monte Carlo Russian roulette system where it's, it gets really, really complex. But basically, it samples, it starts grainy and then it gradually refines the image to try to arrive at a repeatable, predictable result. Basically. So you can see it's starting to get grainy and then it eventually resolves and it says rendering done. So it says rendering done when it has reached its max samples right here. And you can see there are 2 settings here. You've got Viewport and you've got render. So when I hit render, that's why it was taking a little bit longer because the max samples is 4 times as high. Now for something of this size, you don't need that many samples. In fact, yes, there is grain here, but there is a secret weapon that we have not engaged yet, and that is the denoiser. So the denoiser it's using AI to try to smooth out the image without having to arrive at that final image, okay? So
my maximum
I can set my max sample to something low, like 100. And then when I move, you can see that it previously it had to get to like 4,000 to try to like get rid of the noise. Now at just 100 samples, it's cleared it all up. It is miraculous. This is one of the biggest, what NVIDIA did, and I'm sure it wasn't just NVIDIA, a whole bunch of companies create different denoisers. But introducing this to all the softwares for people that have NVIDIA cards, that's why they did it for free, was one of the biggest leaps forward for rendering, honestly. Like the fact that you can now just render with cycles at a low sample count means that it's crazy. You can use it for so much more now. This one's going a little bit. But anyways, so that's Viewport. Now, here's the thing. With the Viewport, you'll notice that watch how slow the samples climb up when you've got denoising turned on versus when I turn it off. Okay, so the denoiser, by the way, you can change the denoiser to be CPU based and it'll be really slow. That's the Intel Open denoiser one. Automatic will use basically optics if you have a compatible card, or you can just set to optics. But anyways, it will slow it down because it's trying to do a denoise as well as sampling, and it's slowing it down. It is nice, but yeah, it will slow it down. So what I like to do is set the starting sample to something high like 50. And then that way, at least it gets through all, like, because at the lowest value of like 1, like it's too noisy to understand anyway, like to try to start it then. So I set it at 50, and then that way I can move around and it won't slow down the grain clearing up, basically. And that's Viewport. So I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. Denoiser. I'll set it to optics. Thank you very much. That's interesting. I didn't actually know that was defaulting as the Intel one. Who knows? It doesn't really matter because the Intel one is slower, but it's only doing it once when you're hitting render. So it's probably not that big of a difference whether you use that or that. But anyways, then I'm going to set my rendering engine, my max samples of my engine to 100 as well. And let's see how fast it does this. Okay, here we go. Compared to the 4,000 samples before, it's now doing it in 3 seconds. Okay? And how long was the... Yeah, so obviously it is still much slower than the EV one because the EV one is real time. But like 3 seconds?
I think it's going to be a lot slower. Just, you know. So
it's not big of a difference. I probably should have also mentioned these sample settings, it is a cycles only thing. Yes, there are samples in EV. It does say sample counts, but it's a different sort of sample. It's not the same. Like it's basically samples are a concern with cycles, really, mostly. So that's really, you see a lot of people caring about samples because the higher the samples you go, that's like it's going to go longer and longer and longer to clear the grain, basically, right? If I turn off the denoise thing, right? If I set this to 0, it's just going to keep rendering forever and ever. Because of noise threshold, it's now actually arriving at a result, but you could just leave it going forever and ever and ever. Yeah, some people, like especially for like production scenes, you'll spend a long time like coming in here and just finding like the exact, amount of samples that you can get away with. Because maybe I didn't mention, but yeah, the higher the samples, the clearer the picture and the more like the better it will look. But the longer it will take. So
now that I have like rendered it and stared at this little bit forever,
that's Viewport, of course. The render
that looks weird as hell
for your render.
Okay, now we're going to do a second pass after finishing this render tutorial.
Noise threshold. Okay, so this used to be called adaptive sampling in previous versions.
New donut.
Noise threshold. This means, you can hover over it and see it, but basically it's trying to read the image and stop adding samples where it's not needed. So usually samples are needed for like shadowy areas and areas of like lots of caustics and refractions and things. But areas where it's receiving a lot of light, not a lot of bounce light, like for example, the top of this donut, it could get away with using less samples. So this adaptive thing is trying to find what that value should be before stopping, basically. So, I mean, I really don't play with it that often. I sort of just leave it at the default. If you set it at 0, it will try to do it automatically based on the number of samples that you've got. I mean, really, I'm just going to leave it at the default. It's not really that big of a deal. But what that means is that now, with it turned on, you get this minimum value. So the min value means it will override this so that if for whatever reason it's doing like, it's skipping a part that still looks noisy, but you go like, oh, you should at least chuck in, 15 samples. You could do that. But yeah, if you turned off that adaptive sampling, it would just go by like, it's going to do everything at 600 samples regardless. So this will do it like that. Anyways, for something like a donut, I mean, look, we don't need to go that high. I mean, like 100 or 200 I might use for my final, but that's probably it. It doesn't need to be that much. Oh, and 3.0 now has a new feature of time limit. So if you just want to like override all of these settings basically and go like, I only want to give you 2 seconds to render. So whatever you can do in 2 seconds, like do it. Not including scene build time, so that's why it's still over 2. But you can let's try that. Maybe go 1 second. You could do that if you wanted. There you go. Anyways, that's a little bit about rendering, everyone. So as I said, I'm going to be using cycles for this tutorial to get the final result, but we're going to be building it in Eevee. So you can render in Eevee. If you just want to stick to Eevee, go for it. You'll find that it should look fairly well. I'll be swapping to it every now and then, so I might be adjusting some of the settings later on. But if you want to use Eevee and stick to it for the final image, you are welcome to. But yeah, that's a bit of rendering and materials and all that good stuff. So we're going to be delving into it far deeper as we go into it. But first, we're going to be adding some sprinkles. That's the next big hurdle for our donut project.
You've mentioned the sprinkles. The next tutorial is texturing. But, By the way, it is adding a lot more details. I am going to put this out to render. Oh, it's having fun. Oh gods. This may take a minute. Hold on. Okay, cool. I have changed the samples for this final render, for the actual render, to 1024. Which feels appropriate. Then we will see how that turns out. I'll probably post it in the Discord. And also save it, because I just realized I have not saved this donut. Ooh, okay. Taking a little bit to render. Let it be like that. I mean, I am actively streaming right now, so I'm surprised it's doing as well as it is, actually. I just realized, hey, I am streaming. Let me save that on my... Nope. Renders. There we go. Save as an image there. Nice. Save as to... Cool. All right, we've got a decent donut. I'm gonna put my stuff to intermission. Thanks to everyone who's stuck around this long. I'm putting things on intermission, and we are going to... Well, I'm going to get some, like, food and water. I am going to put on the lo-fi, and we will be back. And when we get back, I'm going to be doing all of the steps previously in the tutorial again, probably quicker, in order to, like, get more practice in with the things that we've already covered. And I'll do the other bits of the tutorial in a little bit, maybe like tomorrow. Yeah. We've still got more stream to go. I just need to refill my water and maybe get a snack. I will be back. Ooh. Oh, I'm gonna mute my mic here. Jesus Christ. Oh, my legs are sore. I do still need to do stuff. Time before Solace Little Song 2 get snack. Maybe, like, dinner, definitely water. Yeah. I'll leave him on lo-fi for a little bit. I have, like, one viewer. You know. many of these. My mic is unmuted. Wild. Hey everyone. I'm out here again. Oof. A little tired, but you know. Consuming some goldfish. Decent. Alright, so the plan is, once I finish that last episode, I would restart from the beginning. Not like watching the thing, but like doing the steps of the tutorial over again to see if I can remember it and think about like the tools I'm using. So I am gonna... Nope. Get rid of the picture-in-picture. Cool. Back to the intermission real quick. Because I'm also eating some goldfish. But I'm also about to post the first draft screenshot. Which I think looks pretty nice. Want to head back to the gameplay. This is the first draft donut, by the way. I think it looks really good. Yeah, I am simply out here. Okay. Yeah, I am simply out here. Me am consume goldfish. Yeah, there are some bits I don't like about this donut. It's partially just inexperience and not putting a ton of time into it, like this weird flat bit here. Like a lot of these drops are a little flatter than I like. Thank you. Yeah, that's part of the reason why I wanted to do a take two on the donut. Yeah, just a quick save and new general. There we go. Cool. All right, Shift A, get ourselves a torus. Edit its features a little. Bring that up a bit. Major radius. know, I think that looks pretty good. Then we can scale it in the Properties menu. Have the roughly 0.1, 0.1, 0.05. And that is a close to donut size. Go. Yeah, I like that. All right. Then what do I want to do? Make it smooth. Add a subsurf, which looks pretty neat. Then take it to the side, do a bit of that. Shift D and P. Separate the selection. Donut. Icing. So we'll still sling out here speed running. I'm joking, but we're gonna add a solidify. I see the issue. Kinda. Do I see the issue? I do see the issue now. Okay, cool. Solidify. Drag that up to the top. Reverse that offset. Maybe up its thickness a bit. Like a ton? Like this 0.4 should look decent. Oh, you know what? I just realized I never gave my donut some wobble. I should do that. Because this is just a perfect circle, basically. That is actually not what we want. Like that, it's kind of like a less intense. Bring that down a bit, mostly. Let's highlight these three and make sure we haven't accidentally highlighted anything else. I think a bit of a squish would do it nice. And that doesn't look too bad. And now we can go ahead and Alt-Z, make about half of it. Oh, right. Actually, keep that off then. There we go. And separate out the selection. Head over to Object Mode. make that the icing. We've selected the icing. Solidify the icing. Put it on top to avoid some of that clipping. Increase the thickness. Then my donut's got that weird squarish shape. Which I'll continue to allow to exist for now, but getting a lot of odd, like, miscellaneous Russian, I'm gonna guess bots. Which is odd. I don't know how to feel about that. I don't even know what they're about. But it's probably not an issue. Let's apply that subdivision. I can make it so we can't see that in view. It's being a little weird and clippy, but whatever. I mean, they've only sent like 3 messages in this chat. And like, I don't know what's going on there. I'm honestly assuming Russian. I don't know. I guess it'd just be like that, but still. And let me pull out the thing, get image editor, download this. Yeah. There's some odd spelling shifts. Like this one guy does .ngo instead of ONG. Otherwise, it might be a website. It's like baiting you into Googling it. But, I don't know. Apparently Jen's live. Wild. And capitalization is always different, yeah. My donuts had this weird kind of like chunky frosting on them. Honestly, I think I should get a different reference. Yeah. And also a very good excuse not to look into it. I looked up donut reference and I'm getting, you know, just a ton of pictures of the results of the tutorial that we're doing. Okay, I found a good one. No, I actually don't like that picture. Perfect donut, where are you? I'll shut off the Google search. Looking more for examples of the icing dripping. But the thing is, most of the time the icing doesn't drip. I like only in homemade donuts. Even then, it seems to depend largely on the thickness of the frosting. The original and this one here uses a really thin, runny frosting. This photo by Dunkin' Donuts is kind of the closest to what I'm looking for. Wait, is this just sorted alphabetically? Why? Hold on, let me... My downloads... Duncan. America runs on Duncan. I hear giving Dunkin' Donuts. Why is Dirk Strider on my computer? Anyway, let's get back to these donuts. Oh, come on. If I make this into a highlights reel, I am censoring the file paths. Not supposed to know about him yet. I honestly just found the Sharpie Bath art a long time ago. No, I did accidentally come across them while looking up the different class spec pairs, but you know. I was a nerd and looked into the world building. Which occasionally mentioned names. You know, I was really just looking for Homestuck memes to torture friends with. Because I think I've had that image since before I actually started the Homestuck series. It's just been on my computer for a while. It's a nice sort of like drippy, I think, frosting. We can add in some nice extruded bits. What? I'm sorry? What happened there? Why is it square? What? That... What? What the fuck? Huh? I'm terrified. Can I, like, do something differently? What the fuck? If you really think about it, How many donuts have you eaten that have had those, like, big drips down the side, you know? Wouldn't that be kind of annoying? We're making a very pleasant to eat donut, I think. Plus, most of them are just dipped in a vat anyway. This is already drippier than most donuts. I mean, I knew about Homestuck. I looked up Homestuck bathtub meme and found the little cartoon man. The drips made a square. Like, I don't understand how or why it's doing that. It's certainly not supposed to be doing that. Like, I don't know what thing I messed up. Get that to happen. Hold on, let me try something. Oh, you need to have the extra subdivision to get it curved like that, and then you apply it after, like when you're done. I guess that makes sense. God. A little bit of a pinch. I'm thinking. Also, trying not to accidentally keep anything extruded that isn't meant to be. If I do that. Square. Okay. Someone still loves you. Someone still loves you. Meet me at the overpass, at the overpass. Lipstick eyes and sketchy girl. And the icing doesn't drip at all. See? Yeah. I mean, this is like an artisan donut, though, I think. I think that's like the aesthetic we're going for. I think I've done some fun stuff here. Yep. Artisanally crafted, exactly. Then you get a shrink wrap mod. Goes on top. Your target's that. Kind of like gloms on. Thing hide. And where the fuck are the vertices? There they are, on the inside. Yeah, it looks like Artisan Ally, which feels like a weird thing to say. Alright. I don't entirely know how much I like this. I'll be honest. Oh, it feels really even. That's one of the things. Huh. You know what? I think I want to redo. Again. Being very cruel to all of these default cubes, but we must. Alright. Then scale that down quite a bit. Closer to like around there. roughly like 10 centimeters, which I don't have an accurate scale for centimeters or donuts in my head, but that feels right. It's smooth, and let's get a subdivision surf here. Right? Highlight that. You know, that's for the fucking... That's for the other bit. It's a surprise tool that'll help us later. By surprise, I mean we've used it before, but... You know what? Let's be courageous. Make this donut a little smaller. Essentially, a little triangular. Feels like a good shape for a donut. Triangle feels like a good shape in general. Cool. I'm gonna choose to be okay with this. Alt click. So far, most of the donut references have had like less icing than the like tutorial originally proposes. I like a decent amount. Grab a solidify. Put it at 0.4. Apply the subdivision and grab out a new one. Don't show the solidify this mode. And I think this will look better. It's got a little less frosting, but it gives us more room to do drippies. Do drippies. That sounds like a weird drug. Watch me get demonetized. Kidding, I'm not monetized in the first place. Pull some of that down. Yeah, like in order to get demonetized, you'd have to be monetized in the first place. YouTube, if you want me to be a bit more safe for work, you can pay me about it. Here, hey YouTube, as if they're watching. I don't know, sometimes I like to imagine that they're watching my live streams in the YouTube corporate office. Just because I happen to be what's on. What the fuck is this weird ass mesh up here? What? Wait, where are you fuckers from? Oh, like all the way up there? Oh no. Do you all... Oh no. Oh god. Wow. You know what? I'm gonna undo all of my changes to this mesh. I have a feeling I selected some things that didn't want to be selected. Like, how did I even do that? What? Wah. Wah. I mean, I do vocally support artisan rights, like, you know. Like, we should be in a society that allows for more, like, independent producers to be able to do shit that are just big ol' factories. What? What is going on there? I have a feeling that maybe 3.0, the freshest release, still has a few bugs in it. But you know, ain't horrible. But if I do the same thing with the camera tilted this way, it doesn't glitch as hard. So, like, what? Huh? God. What would that issue even be caused by? Watch it happen right there. Jesus. You have to go to bed soon? That's fair. I will post the final render for this version of the donut in the Discord. So don't you worry. This donut will 100% be posted where you can see it. You can always come back to the VOD. I do appreciate the chatting. I understand you're probably not going to bed now, but... Oh, okay, you are. See ya! You keep double checking my mesh to make sure it doesn't freak out on me. I saw it happen again. I can't tell you exactly what, like, metric I'm using by which I can see it, but I can. Bit of like a thinner one. Bring that one down a bit. That one. Never mind on that plan. I might be able to do it still if I go more like what? This line is a little thicker. Edges. Vertices. There we go. A lot of effort to get like a kind of shitty double drip. Yeah, that really doesn't look nice, but I can probably fix it up in sculpting. But what went wrong with you? Okay. Yeah, this seems like a bit of a glitchy build. I'm gonna submit this entire stream for bug fixing purposes. I don't think I've done this too bad. Click Alt S. He is right when it comes to that. Meant to pan, not. Well, you know. Kinda just looks flatter, but add a shrink wrap mod. Get that. There we go. Okay. Ooh. Now let's do a little sculpting. Oh. Right. Tiny boy. Brat cat. Use... do a little ching. Now, one of these bits said... One of the bits said I could make it into an airbrush mode, kinda? Here somewhere. All off. Cursor stroke. There we go. Is in the stroke settings. I can airbrush it. Oh, hey. Take that down a little. And then a bit. Ooh, those are some nice, like, gooey blobs. I'm liking it. Less there. Up there. The base up. A little bit up here. Oh, that's happening. Right, well. used Inflate, made it a bit more inflated. I got it. Oh, hey! Wait a... Vaguely. Most of this smoothing out I've got to do is right up here. Doesn't look half bad. Either looks better or worse, but not half bad. Alright. Mostly satisfied. It look like this. Once again, not terrible. The globules leave a little to be desired. Inlight Scene World. This is just Eevee now. Shift A. Bring in a plane mesh. Ooh, that's like almost the perfect height. Fan that out a bit, just in case. Do a bit of that, bring it a bit closer. And that's looking fairly stark, so we should dim that a little. Yeah. 130-ish. Turn it red. There we go. Get ourselves a point light. Eevee. Shadow. The higher cube size. Doesn't look half bad. Control-Alt-0. Bring it up the... Alright, that's decent. Then head down to the plane. I've been streaming for almost 4 hours, and I'm not confident there have been many people here for that duration. So if you are still here, I appreciate it. Hasn't been my most interesting stream. It's not by usual standards, since I largely video games. Alright. And up that subsurface. Mean to be rendering in cycles. Anyway, where's that roughness setting? There it is. right. Now, if I do say so myself, that is looking much better. I do want to change the color of this so it's more explicitly red, because branding. Let me add another subsurf. Oh, that looks better immediately. Yes, apply that. Oh, I am so much more confident about this donut than the previous one. You could probably just chalk it up to, at this point I have done it before, but still. Alright, cool. Now, to save it... 3.blend. Alright, cool. Alright. Ooh. Well, I am pretty tired out. But, because it is 2 a.m. here, fun fact. But in the near future, I would like to be, finishing this up, hopefully, like, tomorrow during the day. But I do have, Monster of the Week thing in the afternoon, so who knows, really. But hopefully tomorrow, day after, maybe like Tuesday at the latest, I will be finishing the tutorial and getting a final version of this donut in. Save that again. Oh. And let's make a render. I just hit print screen on accident. Alright, now this is alarmingly close to the donut. I'm actually gonna zoom out a notch. There we go. That gives you a decent picture of the donut without being overwhelming. All right. Well, and just as a reminder, the tutorial that I followed throughout the first half of this stream can be found on the Blender Guru channel. I have linked the playlist in the pinned chat, as well as the description down below. I really appreciate everyone who is watching. Y'all are basically the reason I do this, I guess. I mostly do this for myself, actually, but keep that between us. And I will see all of you guys. Well, I'm waiting for the actual later. Actually, I'm gonna export it real quick. Look, it's the export button. Save? Save. Donut2 render.2. Cool. Save as image. Oh, this looks so cool. I actually kind of understand what I'm doing, which is unexpected. Alright, I will see y'all later.